people, ABC Amber TV, Ambazonia Broadcasting Corporation. The voice of the voiceless, the voice of Ambazonia, connecting the world from Africa with untold stories, Africa's best. We the people, ABC Amber TV, Ambazonia Broadcasting Corporation. The voice of the voiceless, the voice of Ambazonia, connecting the world from Africa with untold stories, Africa's best. Wisdom for the Ambazonian Quest with Bridget Muyang Fielding. Wisdom is the principal thing, therefore get wisdom, and with all thy getting, get understanding. King Solomon, Proverbs 4:7, KJV.
And if any man think that he knoweth anything, he knoweth nothing, yet as he ought to know. Apostle Paul, 1 Corinthians 8 verse 2.
We are only as wise as our awareness of our ignorance. The only true wisdom is knowing you know nothing. Socrates/Plato. This wisdom is the altar of humility and success.
There is no wisdom for a nation at war to sink its own gunboat. It weakens diplomacy, is tantamount to capitulation and defeat. That is exactly what some so-called Amazonian leaders have done, asking fighters to keep low for whatever reason. This is surrender wisdom, and it has delayed progress for 2 years. Bridget Muyang Fielding.
Wisdom for the Amazonian.
Good afternoon, good evening, particularly good evening. I think this is about 15 minutes to 9 p.m. in Ambazonia. We apologize for coming late, but as you know, Defense Briefing is a show that has been reinvigorated and must always go live. By the time they end and we get panelists and get the setup, it takes some time. Thank God you Amazonians have been diligent, watching and waiting. I've had several calls at the home front, meaning a lot of Ambazonians were anticipating this program. Tonight, we're going to have very sensitive topics to talk about. We've received protests from some apologists. I call them apologists, those who still consider our struggle or our movement as an anglophone struggle. They have a problem with our caption, annexation is an international crime, and La République du Cameroon is a culprit. They want to intimidate us from telling our people the truth. But that is the truth. What is annexation? Annexation is when another country forces themselves control over another state, a sovereign country. That is what President Ayijo did to the former British Southern Cameroons, today Ambazonia, when they invaded our national territory in 1961. Apologists from Yaoundé do not like us to keep repeating this because they want to force us in some fake referendum number 2 so that they will own our national territory. No way. This generation, the never again generation, is well aware of the facts, and we will determine our pace. We will determine our narrative. You cannot impose a discussion on us. I'm inviting anyone who thinks we should not bring in the clause of annexation in this discussion should join us any day soon on this debate so we can tackle the issue. Another very vital thing we'll be talking about this evening is Cousin Anyangwe's scheme to destroy the interim government and to bring forth or to remix Skakuf. Now you must understand this. Skakuf was not destroyed or did not evolve into the governing council because Ambazonians as a people just like to change movements. It was because as we understand and progress in our discussion, we saw that Skakuf, if maintained the way it was, would have led to a group of mixed multitude. And so we're moving towards a direction for our liberation movement. And then we had the governing council, whose first and only chairman was Sisiko Julius Ayub Tabe? Do you want to contest the rationale of those who evolved from Skakuf into governing council? Tonight will be your answer. It is unfortunate that the same individuals who argued, voted, and transformed Skakuf into the governing council are today trying to take Ambazonians who now have an interim government, well recognized internationally, to go back to Skakuf with a new name they call the Revolutionary Council. That's a fraud. We have Dr. Winnie Lobati, the Speaker of the Interim House of Representatives, who is here tonight to tell us how this thing started. How Anyangwe visited the Restoration Council, defunct Restoration Council, deleted Restoration Council clandestinely to win some few. Anyangwe influenced what was called in the Restoration Council the Government Affairs Committee, a committee that suddenly in the Restoration Council became autonomous, was working with a man at the time, you know, called himself Kometa, to become an emperor over Amazonia. That's aside. Why do we rejuvenate this discussion as we move on? Because our people deserve the right to understand where or what are the root causes of the scam that led to the surrender talks in Canada. President Dr. Samuel Ikomesako announces publicly that every Ambazonian volunteer, every Ambazonian fighter at the home front, irrespective of your name, if you're willing to wipe out the Bulu Beti, a Singan occupational forces, you're willing to fight Cameroon and only Cameroon, contact his interim government, the interim government of the Federal Republic of Amazonia, and you will be funded. He has done it before. He has done it again and again. And January 2023 is an avant-garde, should I say, a foretaste of 2023 and the history that the interim government intends to make. We're not only restoring firepower on the ground, the interim government, under the diligent leadership of President Sako, is willing to bring Cameroon to his knees. The interim government is not begging for talks or negotiations because they understand what it entails to win this war or to force Cameroon into negotiations. I won't waste much of your time, but after the break, I want to ensure if the last panelist is there. I have Barrister Fru John Sott waiting. He's been waiting for at least 15 minutes now. I have Barrister Tim already waiting. I want to be sure that Barrister Ghana Valentine is connected so we can ignite this discussion and move right on with it. Just be patient, and in a few minutes, we'll be right back.
Wisdom for the Ambazonian Quest with Bridget Muyang Fielding. Wisdom is the principal thing, therefore get wisdom, and with all thy getting, get understanding. King Solomon, Proverbs 4:7, KJV.
And if any man think that he knoweth anything, he knoweth nothing, yet as he ought to know. Apostle Paul, 1 Corinthians 8:2.
We are only as wise as our awareness of our ignorance. The only true wisdom is knowing you know nothing. Socrates/Plato. This wisdom is the altar of humility and success.
There is no wisdom for a nation at war to sink its own gunboat. It weakens diplomacy, is tantamount to capitulation and defeat. That is exactly what some so-called Ambazonian leaders have done, asking fighters to keep low for whatever reason. This is surrender wisdom, and it has delayed progress for 2 years. Bridget Muyang Fielding.
We gather, light up a fire. We getting higher. We feel the power. Oh. Jatima. Lendula. Motherland is such a paradise. Savannah and Sahara unite, light up one big firelight. We dancing through the night. Landa with the lodging lador, with the machang chang na. Oh, G G-O G G-O G G-O G G-O. The rivers will never stop to flow. The mountains will always keep our gold. So let us dream alive. Yovabena, with the Mayua, Mshiajima, freedom of the mind. Afienaru ilafanaku, Afienaru ilafanabu. Idudun from the light up a fire, we getting higher, we feel the power. Oh, abatia, verbatia kongadema, verbatia chenga chenga, verbatia yovabena. Oh. No, 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 no. Vikin vitu vena kalindera, saddle with pujina. Ay, 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 abay, ay, ay, ay. Abani kantini with the machangin back kishi kishi ranila with your chi abani your vanilla yo yo yo. Motherland is such a paradise. How long before we realize?
Okay. Wisdom for the Ambazonian Quest with Bridget Muyang Fielding. Wisdom is the principal thing. Therefore, get wisdom, and with all thy getting, get understanding. King Solomon, Proverbs 4:7, KJV.
And if any man think that he knoweth anything, he knoweth nothing, yet as he ought to know. Apostle Paul, 1 Corinthians 8:2.
We are only as wise as our awareness of our ignorance. The only true wisdom is knowing you know nothing. Socrates/Plato. This wisdom is the altar of humility and success.
There is no wisdom for a nation at war to sink its own gunboat. It weakens diplomacy, is tantamount to capitulation and defeat. That is exactly what some so-called Amazonian leaders have done, asking fighters to keep low for whatever reason. This is surrender wisdom, and it has delayed progress for 2 years. Bridget Muyang Fielding.
We the people, ABC Amber TV, Ambazonia Broadcasting Corporation. The voice of the voiceless, the voice of Ambazonia, connecting the world from Africa. With untold stories, Africa's best. We the people, ABC Amber TV.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for staying tuned. Thank you for coming. It's exactly 9 p.m. in Ambazonia, and I think it's high time this discussion begins. Some have given positive comments on the skit we have from Bridget Muyang, and some feel that we are over Christianizing the Ambazonian liberation movement. But I think Ambazonians should not be apologetic in that. I have done evangelism. I've done business in Northern Cameroon and in Chad Republic. Those who know me know what I mean. And when you're going towards the northern part of the Cameroons, the Muslims are very unapologetic when it comes to their belief and the way they express themselves. Am I saying we should queue with them? That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying Christians should avoid that demonic influence of always being apologetic when it comes to their faith. It's a spirit, and it's not a positive spirit. Is not diplomacy, it's deception. There is no pride in you trying to be a moderate when it comes to your belief. In the realm of the spirit, there is no moderatism. Moderatism is a fraud. That it is in English. In America, you find Republicans and you find Democrats. Those who are always in the middle really do not have a significant voice. First of all, because their argument doesn't face reality. It's either you are good or you're bad. And we need to be vigilant in the Amazonian liberation movement with those who want to stay in the middle ground. Most of them were in Canada. Most of them were conveners of the Canada surrender talks. They have not told us, the peoples of Ambazonia, their stance, whether they are for federalism or they are for independence. And they want to bring together a mixed multitude so that in a resolution we'll have a Fumban chapter 2. No way. This thought emanates from the spirit. Do not allow anyone to emotionally blackmail you for prophesying your faith, either in Jesus Christ. I am a proud Christian, and there is no stopping me on that. And I don't have no reason to be apologetic to someone who isn't. Thank you very much once again for coming, Madam Speaker. Good evening and welcome.
Paddy, thank you for having me here today. And ABC Amber TV viewers, thank you for also watching.
Good evening, Barrister Tim, Barrister Fru. Your sound is perfect. I like your they call it denim jacket. The swag this evening from the House of Representatives is amazing. I believe Ambazonians love that jacket like I do. And we have the power voices of the Amazonian government in this house. We have the chairperson for the Judiciary Commission and the Attorney General. We also have some apologies at the home front. I'm looking forward to have Barrister Ghana. I hope he's going to join us. He is on the move now. As soon as I get him, he will join this panel discussion. But on one of the platforms, with some apologies at the home front, they're having a problem that we captioned the discussion: annexation is a crime by international law, and that La République du Cameroon is a culprit. And if found, like the president said, committing such a crime, we do not need a referendum to handle such criminals. This is where we begin our discussion this evening. And I think I will have Barrister Timbe Seha up on the floor.
Thank you once more for having me. You bring very technical subjects, which I think, especially those who are wondering, should learn from it. You see, you are talking about annexation. That's where we are right now. Maybe the common man, the ordinary citizen, should understand what annexation means. Annexation means going beyond your own boundaries to occupy another man's land. In the village, if you leave your fence area and go into another person's fence, you're an aggressor. That guy into whose fence you have gone and destroyed his or her crops, caught his or his animals, goats, pigs, whatever, can challenge you, has the right to challenge you for doing that. That's what is meant by aggression, going beyond your own boundary. Has that happened to us? Yes. As of 1961, Southern Cameroon, what we call today Ambazonia, had its undefined boundaries, marked by beacons, pillars, some of which are still standing there. And so anybody who goes beyond those boundaries is an aggressor, is an occupier. Don't tell us that we voted in 1961 to join them or not. Yes, even if we join them, that was not going to deface the boundaries of West Cameroon. The boundaries are supposed to be permanent. That's why today, even in Cameroon, there's a boundary between Bafoussam and Bunda. There's a boundary between Mfu and Mignon. So if you go beyond boundary, you are a trespasser. And so going beyond that is a war crime. Is it written somewhere or it is our own imagination? It is not our imagination. In Article 5 of the Rome Statute that creates the ICC, paragraph 5 of that Article 5 talks of war of aggression. If in a country, any region, because you remember the Rome Statute is not only meant for international issues. No. If Bafoussam crossed Mbunda and started killing people there, and the Cameroon government did not have adequate protection, the Mbunda people can appeal to ICC. I'm just trying to make you understand. So we are protected under international law, specifically the Rome Statute that binds all nations and defines what crimes goes to the ICC, that's International Criminal Court. Again, in Article 5, paragraph 5, they talk of aggression. Anybody who's aggressive, in this case, we are dealing with countries, we are dealing with internationally recognized entities. Is Ambazonia, was Southern Cameroon, was West Cameroon internationally protected in terms of her land? Yes. They are defined boundaries, land boundaries, they are defined sea boundaries, they are defined air boundaries. Anybody going across those boundaries without the consent expressed or implied by Ambazonians is an aggressor and can be prosecuted. And we who are being aggressed have the right to defend ourselves within that defined boundary. And that will probably take us to what we have been singing all the time. We are facing a self-defense war. People who came across your own boundary to destroy you, to capture you, to destroy your houses, destroy your crops, took your people, fly them over to Yaoundé and put them in jail, in their own prisons. So there's nothing more than that can be described as aggression. And so it is an annexation, going across to annex territory that does not belong to you. It's annexation, it is aggression. who did not join, I've said this before on this very debate, we have places where these boundary marks were standing there. They have been pulled down clandestinely and publicly to deface the boundaries. In intention to deface the boundaries so that people should never believe there was any boundary between us and that people of Cameroon. Is there more evidence about this? Yes. When Paul Biya says they wanted to assimilate them, it is even more than aggression. They did not just want to occupy the land. They wanted to transform you into something else. That's what is meant by assimilation, which is part of aggression, which is part of annexation. They went beyond annexation. They didn't just want to take the territory. They could come there and build houses, yes. But the fact that they went beyond that and they started putting. I'm not getting you.
I'm saying
Sound,
they did
sound.
cultural genocide and called us anglophone so that they can really neutralize us. So they reduced us from a people to a language.
Yes, I was just trying to say that I was trying to land there. The fact that they did not just cross physically, they sought to transform us intellectually by bringing their schools, bringing their laws, trying to face our identity culturally and physically. That's an open annexation to which we are entitled to defend against and to which legally we can take legal action before any international criminal court and we'll have a remedy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Barrister Fru, perhaps you want to react or add?
Yes, thank you, Paddy. To take the cue from my senior colleague, I will say that the La Republic de Cameroon annexed us on the 30th of September 1961 because we were supposed to join on the 1st of October, but we didn't join. That's a valid my argument, and I have stayed with it all my life. You didn't join because you refused to implement Resolution 1608 in its paragraph 5, read together with the Charter of the United Nations, Article 102. So when Ahijo moved his troops, his gendarmes, into southern Cameroon on the 30th of September, that was annexation, an illegal annexation, crossing into southern Cameroon illegally and annexing it. He did not only do that, before he did that, he got a constitution promulgated in his own House of Assembly in Yaoundé called La République du Cameroun, a constitution that was enacted and signed into law on the 1st of September 1961 when we were still under the British rule. And he brought that along with him and implemented on our people. On the night of the 30th of September and on the 1st of October, he was with the complicity of Great Britain, they annexed us. Great Britain, on leaving, brought down the Union Jack, and instead of giving it to Foncha, the current Prime Minister, he gave it to Ahijo. So the Britain was an accomplice to that annexation. And over the years, they have tried to assimilate us, starting with their constitution, which they successfully applied, going on to their laws, going on to their culture, trying to impose a culture on us that we knew nothing about. And that was annexation. That is illegal under international law. I will not come back to cite the law that Pastor Tim has already cited, what annexation is all about. Annexation You don't even need to fight. You don't even need to fight a war. You cross over to somebody's territory illegally and start planting crops or doing whatever you're doing, assimilating, teaching them how to speak your language or do everything, catch them, arrest them, and so on and so forth. It doesn't have to be a war. That is assimilation, which is a logical action after annexation. And of course, Mr. Beer admitted that they tried to, and they have not succeeded. So, look, I see Amazonian law, legal experts, former law professors running around the globe trying to make ends meet and talking about the conclusion, talking about how Beer is supposed to complete the assimilation and asking us to create a governing a revolutionary council, so that a revolutionary council inside La République du Cameroon.
No, I think you're rushing. I don't want you
I'm
to
not.
rush.
I'm not.
First of all, I wanted us to lay down.
Hold on.
Yes, I'll be back with you, Barrister Pro. I'll be back with you, Barrister Pro, please.
I'm still talking about annexation and assimilation.
Yeah.
Because every action of anybody who is not in the restoration of the independence of the Southern Cameroon is acting as an accomplice to the annexation and assimilation of the British Southern Cameroon and Amazonia. That is what I'm trying to prove. Yes, I'll listen
actually,
to you now.
My insistence was to make sure that we lay down sufficient literature, narrative, or review on assimilation, annexation, vis-a-vis the Southern Cameroon's problem. That some apologists would rather want to call it anglophone problem. I just have a certain Jude, I think he's a barrister, Jude in the home front. He's insisting to call it an anglophone problem. I just told him, you can only call it what you see. And I don't blame you. But if he wants to join our panel, he should join. So, Madam Speaker of the House, you're welcome. I know that you didn't come to
Paddy,
this.
Before you put me aside. No, Paddy, before you put me aside, let me correct what I was trying to say. The annexation of the Southern Cameroon and Amazonia started on the 30th of September. Anybody who wants to challenge me can challenge me. That is the date that they started it.
30th of September, which year?
1961. 1961, okay. Because they had no right. They did not implement
the national territory of Southern Cameroon.
Yes, they did not implement Resolution 1608, read together with the Charter of the United Nations in its Article 102. And they came into our territory overnight. And then okay. they brought a law that was promulgated in the Assembly 30 days before and retroactively applied to us. That is okay. Annexation and assimilation read together.
So what you're saying is that even the federal law, I think Article 74, if I'm not mistaken, no, I'm going to verify.
47.
Of that law, 47, stipulated that if the system they are proposing should not be, the form of the state must not be adulterated by anyone. So that law was not even a collective draft, was not drafted collectively.
That's law what you're saying. Was voted in the La République du Cameroon Parliament, and was never sent to the Southern Cameroon Parliament for ratification. Our government and our legislature had no knowledge of it, and they applied it to us. And that is why, look, even their own law that they applied to us had that Article 47, which they violated. And I don't want to lay any too much emphasis on that, because, first of all, a law that is illegally retroactive to a people, to me, is invalid either way you look at it.
Madam Speaker, I think we've laid down a better foundation for you. Usually it is ladies before gentlemen, but then I thought they should have put the red carpet for you to climb on when it comes to this annexation mess of Southern Cameroons. Go right ahead, please.
Your Excellency.
Thank you. Thank you, Paddy. I think one of the key things that Barrister John just nailed it was the fact that even the law that they claim was the federal law of 1961 was never ratified by the House of Parliament of Southern Cameroons. So, by de facto, it just meant that something was imposed on us. I like the something else that just to bring it to layman's term to help people about the annexation. I think what it's the easiest way was to just say they trespass. They left their boundary and enter our land, and that's trespassing. And trespassing is against human laws, the laws of nature, as well as the law of international laws. And then they became squatters, another terminology that law people can interpret. And they have remained those squatters for all these years. And not only as squatters, but with the intention of changing, pushing us out of our territory and owning the land. That's all annexation. Why? Look, Paddy, I will just state this. Why a majority? They started with another false premise. Oh, it's too expensive to run two government, a federal government in the West Cameroon and a federal government in the East Cameroon. Let's just bring it all together. They had their intention. It was well crafted, well calculated, and they had a direction they were going. All this was laid out, and for no other reason was just the fact that we were a treasure trove with so much natural resources that were endowed, agricultural and even underneath the earth. So going that route was an easier way. First of all, let me just even start with the United Nations. The people that you were forcing these people to go vote, to go stay with. We took our referendum in April. No, we had our referendum, and then in April, you took this referendum result to go for a vote in the United Nations. And the very people that we said we were going to join voted against it. That was a red flag, a big red flag. They should have said.
I think it was a plebiscite. It was a
plebiscite.
Sorry,
it was plebiscite. But plebiscite should not have been binding, especially if the so-called who to join was refusing for us to not be independent. Then that was a red flag enough to have said there is problem in our hands. Believe it or not, Nigeria never acted to Northern Cameroon that way. And it was also illegal to have separated us from Northern Nigeria and gave us two different plebiscites to decide whether we want to go to Nigeria or we want to go to La République. Those were all illegal, and those were violating our basic human rights and tenets as a people.
Yeah, you just brought in something there. The same individuals who voted against our independence invaded our national territory a few months later, and like Barrister Fru would put it, our anglophone problem, or whatever, the annexation of our territory started on the 30th. There is this silly argument which it's unfortunate that I'll have to inject into this discussion and somebody talking about anglophone problem. I have a problem with that. Maybe because I understand the scam that is involved in the word anglophone and Cameroon wanting everybody, especially Anglophones, to narrow down this liberation movement into an anglophone problem. Barrister Team, why should we not call this an anglophone problem?
I don't think I want to go to that stupid or debate. Let me try to clarify something. We are dealing with
But I would plead
and
with you in
uh,
your
now
clarification. Try to get
I'm
into
trying to
the
clarify. I'm trying to lead to where you ask the question. Give me room.
good.
You have brought the issue annexation, and you've said there's a guy from home front calling himself Jude. He's a lawyer, and I want us to be properly informed and be properly educated about what we're talking about. Let me say this: if the 1961 Federal Constitution had been properly adopted, approved by the West Cameroon House of Assembly, that would not change the annexation status that we're talking about. No, nobody in the frontier government would have contemplated that what they were going in was to authorize somebody from Yaoundé. In fact, the annexation here is in three categories. Physical, they broke down the boundaries. Nobody would have thought that they would break down the boundaries between East and West Cameroon. Physical boundaries, beacons have set. Second, administrative. Nobody in Boya, at the time, even they approved the federal constitution, would have contemplated that they will come administratively and upon dues and upon everybody in Manfred, in Kumba. No, that's annexation evidence. Nobody sitting in Boya, even under that constitution, would have contemplated them bringing their schools left and right, interfering in our educational system, in everything that we have. That is annexation 101. And so it's not an Anglophone problem. Let me go back to your question. Anglophone problem is a language problem. It's like saying the Fufude problem, the Bamileke talk, the Fulani. No, no, no. It's not a question of language. It's not a question of language. When I was in the University of Yaoundé, the teachers we had there among the Anglophones were essentially Francophones. Professor Tarmac, for example, the Bijangas, they were speaking English, but these are Wondo people and Bamileke people. Yesterday, I talked something about a certain Njikam. Njikam was the director of Lands and Surveys. He was a Bamileke man in Boya, but was speaking English. So it's not a language problem, my dear brother, the lawyer. We are not talking about how to make our schools better, how to speak good English or bad French. No, it's not a language issue. Even if they came and built all the universities in Oxford type of universities in Boya, in Bamanda, in Cambe, wherever we are, that would not change the problem. It's not an Anglophone problem. It's a physical issue of taking our land. It's a physical issue of taking our political system. It's a physical issue of taking our administrative structures. That's what it means. It's not a language problem. It's not an Anglophone problem. That's where you fall into the trap. There are some Francophones, some Republic people who speak more English than all of us combined. They study in London. They speak more English than us. Does that make them Ambazonians now? It don't make them Ambazonians. Some of us speak French more than them. That does not make us Republic citizens. So it's not a language issue, sir. You read all your laws, come challenge me on this, and we'll have a legal debate. Thank you.
You see, an apologist, La République contractors enjoy the word Anglophone problem because it puts them on a comfortable pedestal. But maybe I should remind those who are watching us, Issa Churuma, in a press conference, I believe he was being interviewed by Von Hansen. He said on TV, no, he said that on state TV, state television, La République du Cameroun propaganda machinery or machine. He said He said something very powerful. He said, Anglophone can be anybody. Let me just tell you the thought of the Bulus and the Zakawas, that even his own children are now Anglophones. He said so, that in the nearby future, there will be nothing like Francophone Anglophone, because every Cameroonian will now be speaking both French and English. So everybody can become an Anglophone. A few days later on, the Minister of Higher Education affirmed the same statement. And they all started pretending to speak English, because they saw that we were coming aggressively and digging deep into the root causes of the problem. They now wanted to get to corner it. Fortunately, Skakov redefined it and reinvigorated the movement. They were doing that when they had picked up Agbobala and he was in jail and were fighting for his release. That also, they started redefining it on the media. And that's why I'm calling on every Ambazonian that's watching us right now. You've got to sponsor this platform. This is the only platform. They want to kill it. No other platform says what we're saying now. And they will not tell you this. And that's why we'll be getting into the next phase soon that involves Chris Arnold. We're going to trace how he was employed to destroy this platform and this government. Because Cameroon, and immediately after Cameroon thought that Chris Arnold would have done a good job for them, you had the Prime Minister start saying in Cameroon, there is no war. Before we get to that, Barrister Fru, you want to talk about this Anglophone problem shenanigans. I think it's an insult when after 40,000 at least people, Amazonians or Southern Cameroonians have been killed, and some people are still forcing through the rhetoric of the Anglophone problem.
I don't know who that lawyer is. And
he calls himself.
something
I'm going to read them. I've invited him here to come and join this discussion, so that maybe we'll help him understand some things. He calls himself, let me call his names. He calls himself Jude Fonga. Go right ahead.
Well, he should go back and read the legal history of the Southern Cameroons and Amazonia. Now, listen to me very, very carefully, Paddy. When I was in Ground Zero and I had a show on Afrique Media, and the host of that show asked me a question about Anglophones, Francophones, I immediately told him that I am not an Anglophone and I don't want to hear that name Anglophone, because Anglophone is not a people, it's not me. I am a Southern Cameroonian, maybe from Bamenda, but I am a Southern Cameroonian. And for a lawyer to sit in wherever he's sitting to claim that it's an Anglophone problem, what does he mean by Anglophone problem? For a lawyer, that is very serious. Secondly, Paddy, let me go back to this issue of assimilation. Do you know that on the 30th of September, Ahijo brought gendarmes into Boya and the military because he was anticipating resistance, which never came. And that resistance came much later when Augustine Ngomjoa was prime minister. He sent troops to Boya without consulting the prime minister. The prime minister got his own troops. That's the mobile wing police of the west of the southern Cameroon, and there was going to be a conflict at that time. But it was I don't know how they cooled it down, but that was an affront to the annexation that had taken place on the 30th of September, and Augustine Ngwanjoa could not swallow it. Because somewhere along the line, they brought troops for some other problem, And you remember the Bakosi Bamileke war in Tombel. If left to La République de Cameroon, that war would not have ended. But the mobile wing police of the southern Cameroon brought that problem to an end. That is to show you that the southern Cameroon had its own army, even though they were not called soldiers or they were the mobile wing police, and they had a right to protect their territory because their territory was being invaded and it was being annexed. That's the word. And it was annexed from the 30th of September in the night. And with the complicity of London, the Union Jack was given to Ahidjo to confirm the annexation. Knowing that London was not present in Fumba, knowing that the United Nations was not present in Fumba, knowing that nothing took place in Fumba in conformity with paragraph 5 of 1608, resolution 1608. So to me, until I'm proving otherwise, the annexation took effect from the 30th of September 1961 until when he declared war on us on the 30th of November 2017, and we went into fight after we had restored our independence and sovereignty on the 1st of October 1961 or 2017 by the then President Ayuk Tabe. So it is a crime in international law for any country to move into another country illegally, crossing the boundaries and trying to impose its laws, impose its way of life, imposing everything on the people of that territory that they crossed, of the country they crossed into. That's why I'm in agreement with Barrister Tim when he said La République de Cameroon, whether that constitution was ratified by the Southern Cameroon's parliament, it was still an annexation because they crossed into Southern Cameroon on the 30th of September 1961 and came along with them their constitution that was voted in their parliament and promulgated on the 1st of September 1961 when we were still under the British Trust territory. That's why I say my argument has always been there has been no joining. There was no joining. Thank you, Paddy.
So there has been no legal joining. You see something I like about some of you lawyers, especially when I'm reading this Jude Fongam, is the excessive use of vain words. Anglophone stalemate. When you talk about the stalemate, that's the illusion that Cameroon is using their media and proxies like you to advocate. But perhaps you should look at what is happening recently and how many armored cars have been blown by the restoration forces this January to talk about a stalemate. Cameroon is forcing the world to think that they have won the war. We had the president saying the other day that Cameroon actually said they have already won the war, that there's a little bit of resistance. And we now see that Cameroon was doing so based on the confirmation they had from their apologists and proxies who told them, yes, we can do this. Immediately when they thought they had achieved their objective, they started, some of them now think that Anus is their Messiah because he wants us to return to Eskakov. When they are talking, even a worse than Skakov, because what they are requesting right now is an avalanche of federalists, unity or special statutionists and those who are calling themselves, because I'm saying they're calling themselves because we need to process and assess and confirm that they are actually restorationists or independentists. So they have officially announced that they want a revolutionary council, which from the proposed framework, it is worse than even what Skakuf was. Now, Madam Speaker, I'm coming to you. I think we have turned around it and we are in it. There is a story I'm privy to, and I like it to be more narrative before we get into the debate of the technicalities involved. And I think I want the public to get to know it. Few weeks after President Sako took over power, fought tirelessly to ensure that Sisiko, whom he respected wholeheartedly, should not be killed, like Akuru had prophesied. Akuru was informed by his friends in Yaoundé, who are working for La République, that they're going to kill Sisiko. So he fast-forwarded the information without knowing that we have mounted enough pressure on Nigeria and the world. And so Nigeria was telling them, listen, this man we have given to you, don't kill it because it's going to bring us problem. But their initial objective was to kill Sisiko. So after Dr. Sako had mounted this energy, raised more than $100,000 for his litigation or his defense, and within 3 months was able to mobilize more than 30,000 Amazonian volunteers at the home front. Some did not have even dead guns. They had their hands and knives. Mid that year or later that year, that's 2018, Professor Carson Anyangwe will strangely embark on a course to dismantle the interim government of the Federal Republic of Amazonia. They took Cometa to Philadelphia for APNC and saw that he was a chaff that could not change the course. But via a clandestine means, without consulting the president of the Federal Republic of Amazonia, that's President Sako, Kas Nanyangwe was invited into the Defunct Restoration Council in your presence to come and convince the House to consider a revolutionary council in replacement of the interim government. That's how best I can give an introduction to that story. Talk to us.
Paddy, thank you. The first thing I would say is going back to the people that are saying we have not been annexed. There are one or two things. They're either afraid or they're eating from the annexationists drinking from their pipeline. Then the second thing that is very important, I would say, is there is intellectual dishonesty about this so-called lawyer who says we have not been annexed. He is intellectually dishonest. He needs to go back and read all the resolutions, and maybe if he cannot have the privilege of doing a research, he might want to get some of his students to do it for him or his office person. Concerning this revolutionary council, sometime in 2018 or 2019, mind you, the legislative branch of government, I will use that word now so I don't call some names, whoever is chair or speaker has the privilege or the right within their terms of reference to invite guests to the house. and that is allowed. They don't need that invitation to be cleared through the executive branch or the judiciary branch. You have the right to have them come. But this particular issue of Revolutionary Council probably was kind of maybe cooked in South Africa, but the champion, the person championing that was Professor Anyangwe. He came to the Restoration Council. He had sent his document and was invited. I think it was spring of 2019. He came around February, March, April, sometime there. I would just brought it would have to take me much time to go look at the exact date. He was invited to the house and he came. And here is how this Revolutionary Council that he was proposing was supposed to be. It was supposed to have three wings: a military wing, a financial wing, and a political wing. The political wing will do diplomacy, and the financial wing will raise funds for the military wing. So if the military wing commits atrocity, the political will say, we have no idea what is going on. So then the financial wing will be just there to provide the money. It did not sit well with the House, and not even a vote was taken on that. Nobody even put a motion on the floor that we should vote for this, because what we saw was it was the dismantling of the interim government. Not just dismantling it, but it was to now send us back into some other conclave or some groups, because at this time they had formed all the South Africa cliques that were forming and causing the trouble that they were causing, and that flavor of South Africa clique was flowing into Europe and a few in America, but not so much. I mean, about Amazonians that were in America. But this was interesting, and it looked bizarre, and it looked like going back into the Stone Age, where we were at that point in time. However, the House never acted on it, or the legislative arm never acted. They ignored it. But I would say that it did not stop that ideology from going on. If you look at it, you've seen along the way other people, so-called frontline movements, have picked some of this ideology and they are running with it. And I'm sure Professor Anyangwe was able to convince people like the Chris Anus about his ideology. And these are people who never really took time to process the information and see its implication and see what it was doing. And they quoted some example of some other revolutionary groups that may have done so, but we were gone way beyond that point. And also our cause was legally, we had a case, and internationally we had a case. So there was nothing to be going back to try to duck and take cover and make and create all this. But that did not end, because I think I don't want to disclose a lot of other information given to me in confidence, but there were many other meetings held with other frontline, so-called frontline leaders, to call for a fifth conclave. And the ultimate purpose of that fifth conclave was to dismantle the interim government, specifically to unseat President Sako. So what even happened and what was going on had been going on. Some of this I'm getting the information at the back end of knowing some of the things. It was really to destroy the interim government, unseat President Sako, and then that way they were able to probably go ahead and say, "Oh, things are not going well, things are not moving." That was always the cover code. Things are not moving, things are not good, things are not doing well. So let us go ahead and call a fifth conclave. And the organizer of that some of those meetings were well known. And I hear at some point, I can call Molan Jolly to May's name here, that at some point he said, we cannot discuss any issue about Mola Sako if he is not present. That's somebody with a clear conscience who wants to, if you want to accuse somebody of something, let the person be there, just like people have their day in court, and you tell them, and you bring the accusation, and there should be a counter, and let him defend himself. But that was not done, so that meeting disrupted. Another one was called with one of our senior leaders again, which he walked out of that meeting. So there's been a lot that has gone on in the back for so-called leaders. Sometimes I really wonder if some people are in this just because they want to be able to negotiate what they can get out of this for themselves personally, rather than what is really important for the people of Ambazonia legally, politically, as a people, and as a nation.
Thank you very much.
Madam Speaker of the House, I will come back to you shortly, and I'd like to get more details of that story. But I don't want us, gentlemen on this panel, to look like we are inconsiderate of ideas. Pastor Tim, coming to you now, let us look at our struggle and the way it is going and pretend to consider for 1 minute the Revolutionary Council. Let's see the rationale. If there's any sense in it, or if there's anything to pick from it. Let's pretend for a few minutes. I'm soliciting that we do that. Put it down. The framework that has just been presented to us by Madam Speaker, that was brought to them by Cas Nyanwe. Let's bring it down. I'm going to link how Chris Arnold was hired for the job. But that will be towards the end. I leave the best for the end. Let's get to hear from Barrister Beseha. Let it not be that we just denied it. Let's see if there's something. Maybe the government can consider it.
Yes, we will address it immediately. Before I get there, let me send a message to my colleague at home, Mr. Jude. If he's a lawyer, he's a colleague. Let me give him a small assignment. Back home, if he's there, he knows Issa Chiroma very, very well. Issa Chiroma, if he doesn't know, escaped after the 1984 attempted coup and went to Nigeria. He speaks more English than some of the Bururos who live in Jos and Kaduna. He speaks more English. He speaks very good English. But that did not make him a Nigerian, just because he speaks English. He still remains a Francophone, a Cameroonian. He came back home. He's a minister there. So it's not a question of language. So let him make that reference. That said, let me come to the so-called Restoration Council, whatever thing is proposed there. Before I say that it is of non-event, let me address why. Listen to me carefully. We're in a revolution precisely since 2016. And from 2016 till today, a lot of institutions, some institutions have been set up and have been made to disappear. In 2016, for example, we had the consortium. We were essentially Agwambala, Fontaine, Tasang, and so on, and a few others, and a few people. Where is the consortium today? It is no longer there. The consortium dissolved itself when it got to Nigeria and created SCACUF. They became part of SCACUF. And so, can somebody revive the consortium again? Can Agwambala come and say, no, this is my consortium, or Niba Fontaine? No. The consortium became part of SCACUF, and it remains out of it. It remains there. But where is SCACUF today? SCACUF dissolved itself into the governing council. Can Mr. Tasang, who was the leader of SCACUF initially, say, no, I'm reviving my SCACUF? No. He got absorbed by the governing council. So each time you find that again, the groups are becoming bigger and stronger and more focused. And so the governing council became something else. It didn't just include Skakuf, it included SCNC, all these other groups that joined. And they were absorbed into the governing council. Can they get out of it now? That very governing council transition into the IG that we have today. Can Kumeta only work out and say, no, this is my SCNC? No. Your bones are in the IG, transitioning from the governing council. And so the talk of whatever thing they call governing council is talk. People have the freedom to speak. It's not going to transition to anything. And this is why. If Professor Nyangwe brought it, so be it. He himself realizes that it's not going to go anywhere. And that is why till today, to the best of my knowledge, Professor Nyangwe still supports Ayoktabe as the president of the interim government. He would have simply appointed Ayoktabe chairman of his restoration council if he wished. But why would it not again become that? The debate has been going on. It took steps to transition from the consortium to Skakov. A number of meetings, a coming of together of people to decide the change. It took meetings, groups coming together, the transition from Skakov to the governing council. And it took a larger group again to transition from governing council to the IG. And so in order to change, you need to be able to organize that thing. The conclave number 20, number 50 is not going to hold. But let us look at the IG as it is, which has transitioned and included many more things. President Sarkozy yesterday made a decree and changed it now. It took Berlin. That was an assembly of the whole Ambazonians to include APP, to include county by county. Can Professor Nyangwe summon that meeting, a similar meeting? No. Can Anu summon such a meeting to bring in every anglophone? Call it like that. To change the structure, he cannot. Today, we've declared the Restoration Council dead. But it was not by decree. The president did not make a decree doing it. It took an assembly, a powerful group of people coming together, larger than even Berlin. Call it the Washington, D.C., come together to say, look, this is what we want. And that's why we have it. It is binding because the people came together. So when Professor Nyangwe sits in South Africa, or I sit in London, or somebody sits in Paris and writes out those sort of things, they are of no consequence. They are just for debate, academic debate. They are not going to go anywhere. And again, to end it, this point, I'm trying to emphasize, anybody who's trying to revise something and call SCNC is legally not available. Anybody who tries to revise something and call it consortium is legally inconsequential. And so
No, I want you to be clear. Are you now saying that? I want you to be very clear about this. Are you saying that John Akuru is an impostor?
Oh, I've told him myself that there's nothing like consortium for John Akuru to hate. The consortium having absorbed itself.
It doesn't exist.
Yes, having gotten into Skakov, headed by Tasang, who led the consortium from ground zero. Yes. Where does Mr. Mbakuru have his credentials to call something called consortium? It does not exist legally because it has been dissolved and absorbed by Skakov.
I'm not cutting you short, but Akuru's consortium is the biggest witchcraft that I've ever seen in modern day. I cannot understand it. And this goes to show to you, Amazonians, I'm not the one qualifying it. You see, the actions of people can actually define who they are. You, from a good journalist, will not make such a blunder. Akuru would have just simply created a group, designed a vision, and use it. It would have given to him more credence to use it to impose himself into leadership. Prior to the movement in 2016, Akuru was never a leader for no nothing. He was an analyst for the Anglophone press hour in CRTV, where they go around and they talk foolishness. He started and ended there, and he was not a very good analyst. Yeah, just
Let me
finish.
conclude my point before the next.
Please
Let
go
me
ahead.
give you this one. The consortium, as conceived or claimed by Mba Akuro, is not for the defense of Amazonia. It's not for anything. The main reason why he did it, I hope he's following us, was to have a platform because he was invited to some of these meetings in Washington, D.C. He discovered that he was alone. The Bo Herbers were coming in with Morris. Others were coming in with SCS. He had nothing to hang on. So he said, let me revive this thing called consortium. But again, as I've said, legally, the consortium does not exist anymore, having been absorbed into SCACUF. Legally, the SCNC as SCNC does not exist anymore, having been absorbed into the governing council. Let them show me legal evidence that they can exist after being absorbed. That's the reason for which Mr. Komita was made the chair of the Restoration Council as a representative of the so-called SCNC in the new body. So you cannot come and say, no, I'm acting now as SCNC, no? So that is the general message. Again, let me just learn. There's no way that Mr. Anu, Professor Anyangwe, me or you, is just going to sit down from your dream bed and create something they call Restoration Council. It's not going to happen legally. It's not going to happen practically because you need the resources to call another Berlin. We need resources to call another Washington, D.C., maybe you hold it in Paris. All those pipe dreams from South Africa, all those pipe dreams from China, all those pipe dreams from anywhere are talking points that have no meaning legally. They have no meaning politically. They don't feature anywhere in this struggle right now.
Substance.
Yes. So if again, let me end. If Professor Anyangwe, that would respect very much cared about it, he would have simply transformed Ayuktabe that he supports so much into a Restoration Council and made him chair or whatever thing he will call it there. But he has not done it. He was in Canada holding brief for him as the IG, as his own IG, not as the chairman of the Restoration Council. Thank you, sir.
You see, one thing that I really want to hear what Barrister Fu wants to say because he's been trying to put his hand in the air for some time. Barrister Fu, you're there. Now, let me help to cue you in. I just want to add your talking points. If you listen very closely to Barrister Mbesea, you realize that he has rubbished this whole idea of the Revolutionary Council is stupidity, is a reverse gear that is not needed. But you realize that they are not just, according to their rhetoric, it is going to get us a step forward. So they are ignoring what has worked to get into an illusion that has been in motion for 4 years now into the 5th year. So Kasina Nyangwe has been concocting this idea. They have tried to push it in 2019. It didn't go. 2020, 2021, 2022. And now in 2023, they have reactivated the whole idea. And we are not just discarding it. We are getting into the rationale of it. Is there any sense in it? And this is what Barrister Mbesea will need to revisit again to satisfy my audience. What was the sense? Was it just an evolution? What was the sense of, because Barrister Mbesea spent a lot of time telling us the legitimacy from one stage to another, but we want to get the intricacies vis-a-vis our liberation movement. Why was Kahuf not maintained? Why was the governing council not maintained? And why did we think, and why do we think that the interim government is the bus stop?
Listen to me very carefully. Listen to me very carefully, Paddy. I'm going to talk about Carson Anyangwe, and I'm going to talk about Baakoro. And somewhere along the line, I will mention a lawyer. But let me start. The consortium was formed at the home front by lawyers and teachers. Agobala, Patasang, and others. La République du Cameroon, when they arrested Agobala and the Bafontaine, they banned the consortium and they banned the SCNC officially. La République du Cameroon. Now, Mbakoro, let me throw in something about him. Mbakoro has been a very dishonest journalist. I don't know where he did his own journalism. He concocts things that you can never imagine. I was in Ground Zero. And all the information we had was that the leaders have been killed and thrown in the sea. And that was coming from Mbakoro. Every day he was broadcasting somewhere abroad, I don't know where it was, that the leaders have been killed. They have been thrown in the sea. And me, Barrister Fru Johnson, who was briefed by Dr. Sako, the president of the Federal Republic of Amazonia, I went to SED and I discovered our leaders. And I announced to the world that I saw them. I hope Mbakoro is listening to me. I disproved him by action. Because I led a group of 2 lawyers plus myself 3. And we went to SED and we discovered the leaders to prove Mbakoro wrong. Number 2, Mbakoro goes and takes the word consortium. Which consortium is he talking about? Let me tell you what happened in Nigeria for us to arrive at the interim government. It was a building block. It started with Skafu. A meeting of all the leaders, SCNC and so on, that met to try to get together what can be looked at as the governing of the Southern Cameroon's revolution. They started with Skafu. Then they moved to the governing council. It was a building block. So anybody, look, you build the block from the first conclave right up to the 4th conclave. It was a continuous building of block with leaders, except a few leaders like Bo Herbert and Ayabacho, who fell on the wayside. The group continued to build with the effective leadership of Patasang and Carson Anyangwe and others. Carson Anyangwe is a dishonest intellectual, a university professor, a law professor. It's shameful. For those of you who respect him, like my colleague said, he's very well respected. Well, I don't respect him. I'm a lawyer. I don't respect Anyangwe because he is so intellectually bankrupt and dishonest. Because he took part in the building block of what we call the interim government today. And when the leaders were arrested, the leaders that were still free could not allow that spirit, that interim government that restored our independence on the 1st of October 2017 to die. So they met. And before they met, the person who had been chosen by Siseko as his assistant was Dr. Ekomesako. They met and had to do a consensus, which I call an election, because there were so many were competed, and Anyangwe came out with 1 vote, his own vote. Bobga Harmony came up with 1 vote, his own vote. Chris Anu came up with 1 vote, his own vote. but the majority went for Dr. Sako. And Anyangwe has never forgiven that incident, has never forgotten that incident that threw him out. He had always thought that he would be the leader of the Southern Cameroons. When is he going to give up? Because he has failed in every step that he takes. He left that place with the determination that he was going to destroy the interim government. If not, why did he have to go to the Restoration Council and present a revolutionary council? What has happened to the interim government that had succeeded in bringing our case to the limelight, in putting together the defense, the self-defense of our people? Sako put together the self-defense of our people right from 2018. Anyangwe was watching and did not want that to succeed, so that his chances of becoming the leader would be thwarted. He kept fighting. He kept going. He goes underground, comes out, goes underground, comes out. And that's why I call him, he's not only a dishonest intellectual, he is a bankrupt intellectual, because something that you build, you help in building, you want to destroy, and you do have not succeeded to destroy. Why not give up? And look, Anyangwe is acting like an enabler, and when he goes to places where he has been cornered, he comes out as a lawyer. I'll give you an example. He went to Canada, right? He went to Canada. Is there any document that you see carrying the name of Anyangwe for having been in Canada except what he wrote? You know why? He found out that it was a messy situation, and he coaxed Yerima to sign for the interim government that he supports, Ayuk Tabe, and he vamoosed into thin air, came here and told us about pre-talks, and talking about how people have to organize into professional groups to select people from this area and that area. That is the work of a dishonest intellectual. You failed, and you don't want to accept the fact that you have failed. You went to Canada on whose permission? Who mandated you to go to Canada? And when you finish from Canada, why is your name absent in what the Canadian foreign minister put as a communique? Because you were so smart as a lawyer to have kept yourself out of the messy situation that you people found yourself in Canada. He's always sneaking and coming out so that they should look upon him as a leader. Another issue is he has become so bankrupt financially that he created a financial organ to raise money for the struggle. You are raising money for whom? How much have you raised so far? How much have you given to the struggle? He came on social media and said, people should donate money for so that we take care of the soldiers on the ground. Which soldiers? Do you know any soldier fighting on the ground, Professor Anyangwe? They call you Professor Anyangwe. I would not respect him. I have never respected. I'm a lawyer, just like him. I have never respected him because throughout this struggle, he did a good job in Boya. And when I was a young lawyer in Douala, we met in Boya in the AAC 1. And we got him. We got him and Muzo from Yaoundé and paid their hotel bills in Boya and did everything for Boya. We hired Mount Mary. We did everything, and they took the credit. And since then, he has wanted to be a leader, and he cannot be a leader. Fru Johnson is an older lawyer. I cannot pretend to be a leader. I'm not. So he wants to be a leader at all costs, and he has been trying to destroy the interim government, which he helped to build in Nigeria. And you call that an intellectual? You call that somebody who has as a university
from your utterances, Kasna Nyangwe is a sneaky fellow.
Correct.
And I want to confirm. I want to confirm that, because if you realize that his movements or his actions are leading to the referendum, that he will not use his lip to announce, because he knows that that will contravene the books he have written and published. So he rather allows people like Anu or Anus who do not process information, first of all, because they are void of historical fact.
Before you go there, let me finish. I was
Yes.
still to talk about Mba'akoro. Mba'akoro is one of those cynical fellows that we have in this mix. I don't know whether I can say he's in this struggle. He has a show that he comes up every day and tries to manipulate the people. He first said our leaders died. They didn't die. He first said they went to Canada. They have put together a thing. Full of us were meeting to tell you what we did in Canada. Till today, have you seen it? He was one of those who worked with Niba Fontaine to destroy, to get Dr. Sako sacked from the SCLC, what I don't know what you call it, SCLC that held in Washington. He was one of the architects of the meeting that held where Barrister Bobga read the resolution dismissing Dr. Sako. And
so he has
commentary.
So you realize the same
it's
actors
cynical,
are just
cynical.
transforming their strategy towards the same place. Their
Yes.
target is President Sako.
It will destroy the interim government.
Now, fellow Amazonians, when we talk, we're not just talking to sabotage or to make false claims. I have a video here which I want you to watch before I get to you, Madam Speaker of the House. You're going to see where Cousin Anyangwe himself was giving the blessing to Deacon Tassan Wilfred. When Amazonians thought that it's not all about groups, it's about us creating a structure that governs the liberation movement and defend our cause as a people. Watch the behavior of Jomba Akuru and others who were disinclined to this nomination of Deacon Tassan Wilfred. Stay tuned.
Yes. Let's leave it for consulting. Yes, let's leave it for consulting.
We are on ground, we know what we are saying.
Yes. What I'm saying, I don't know where the conflict will come in, that all of a sudden they become SCAPO leader, SDF leader. No, I don't know. So what I'm saying, is this: the operational arm of this movement, as far as the consortium is concerned, Tassan, sorry.
We need to start over again. Please.
Correct that one. Will be Mr. Tassan and Barrister Yam.
Please come over again.
Oh, yes. As we leave here, this meeting has thrown its weight behind Mr. Tassan and Barrister Ayambe as the operational arm of the consortium back at home. There is no other leadership. Further, in their activities, they work closely in collaboration, of course, with organizations on the ground and STNC. I think that at Ambassador, sorry, yes. That do we add Youth League?
All the others.
And all the other organizations.
Oh, in that case, let's not be named them. Yeah, because
I think you should name them. There are only 5.
Yes. Unless in the front, just in the front.
We need a fundamental against
the arm where they talk about. So don't go.
If you see what I keep on telling you about this man they come for, that man for is evil. That must be this short man is evil. That man is
you talking about it. Don't worry, we hold on. But you are being recorded. Don't say too much. Record me. I'm missing in this video. It's a video, so just record. Just record around as we are talking.
Okay.
Because this whole thing, like I talk, I've always gone to every single one. At the end of the day, all the different people.
When we are playing it, the person hearing will not hold the pedal. Let's go.
All right, please.
Let's go sound is
No, what is going to happen is that we are going to take a refreshed sound from you.
The room is open and I'll
Please.
stop.
Yes,
In there, let's get going back.
Volume.
Paddy sound.
Paddy, your sound.
He's working at it.
Wisdom for the Ambazonian Quest with Bridget Muyang Fielding. Wisdom is the principal thing, therefore get wisdom, and with all thy getting, get understanding. King Solomon, Proverbs 4:7, KJV.
And if any man think that he knoweth anything, he knoweth nothing, yet as he ought to know. Apostle Paul, 1 Corinthians 8 verse 2.
We are only as wise as our awareness of our ignorance. The only true wisdom is knowing you know nothing. Socrates/Plato. This wisdom is the altar of humility and success.
There is no wisdom for a nation at war to sink its own gunboat. It weakens diplomacy, is tantamount to capitulation and defeat. That is exactly what some so-called Amazonian leaders have done, asking fighters to keep low for whatever reason. This is surrender wisdom, and it has delayed progress for 2 years. Bridget Muyang Fielding.
Wisdom for the Ambazonian Quest with Bridget Muyang Fielding. Wisdom is the principal thing.
Sound, Paddy, sound. Get to your producer.
Wisdom for the Ambazonian Quest with Bridget Muyang Fielding. Wisdom is the principal thing, therefore get wisdom, and with all thy getting, get understanding. King Solomon, Proverbs 4:7, KJV.
And if any man think that he knoweth anything, he knoweth nothing, yet as he ought to know. Apostle Paul, 1 Corinthians 8 verse 2.
We are only as wise as our awareness of our ignorance. The only true wisdom is knowing you know nothing. Socrates/Plato. This wisdom is the altar of humility and success.
There is no wisdom for a nation at war to sink its own gunboat. It weakens diplomacy, is tantamount to capitulation and defeat. That is exactly what some so-called Amazonian leaders have done, asking fighters to keep low for whatever reason. This is surrender wisdom, and it has delayed progress for 2 years. Bridget Muyang Fielding.
Wisdom for the Amazonian quest with Bridget Muyang Fielding. Wisdom is the principal thing, therefore get wisdom, and with all thy getting, get understanding. King Solomon, Proverbs 4:7, KJV.
And if any man think that he knoweth anything, he knoweth nothing, yet as he ought to know. Apostle Paul, 1 Corinthians 8 verse 2.
We are only as wise as our awareness of our ignorance. The only true wisdom is knowing you know nothing. Socrates/Plato. This wisdom is the altar of humility and success.
There is no wisdom for a nation at war to sink its own gunboat. It weakens diplomacy, is tantamount to capitulation and defeat. That is exactly what some so-called Amazonian leaders have done, asking fighters to keep low for whatever reason. This is surrender wisdom, and it has delayed progress for 2 years. Bridget Muyang Fielding.
Wisdom for the Amazonian quest with Bridget Muyang Fielding. Wisdom is the principal thing, therefore get wisdom, and with all thy getting, get understanding. King Solomon, Proverbs 4:7, KJV.
And if any man think that he knoweth anything, he knoweth nothing, yet as he ought to know. Apostle Paul, 1 Corinthians 8 verse 2.
We are only as wise as our awareness of our ignorance. The only true wisdom is knowing you know nothing.
Can my sound satisfy us now?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Welcome back.
Okay. Well, I think, where's Kasna Yangwe coming from? Zingi or something? So maybe they got where we got it. Unfortunately for them, I do speak in tongues, and that will not work for me. Okay, let's get back into this discussion. So the video helps to revive this talk tonight. We're not just trying to indict people. I just saw somebody reacting on one platform now. He says Kasna Nyangwe is not just sneaky. Let me just read his statement the way he said it. He says, Kasna Nyangwe is not only sneaky, he is a whimsical. He's a man without scruples, without principles. He strikes with the wind. Intellectual baggage is reduced to naught when one cannot stand and defend a position. Vacillation is a character trait of a very whimsical and untrustworthy individual. Anyangwe cannot be trusted. This is coming from the home front. Well, this is Bridget Muyang Fielding. You've been getting some of the wisdom, and I'm excited that we are so blessed to have this wisdom for us at this time. Nothing is so sweet like this. Now we get back on on the panel. Madam Speaker, you've heard these gentlemen, they're debating so sweetly. Everybody wants to listen to you, everybody wants to listen to them. I hope we get to an end today. Let's get back into your Zoom room or your virtual meeting and space where you hosted this statement with the title Professor Carson Anyangwe. With the delight to listen to him talk.
He's no statesman. He's no statesman.
Okay, thank you for that correction. But let's get into that room again and the atmosphere. I'm talking to you now. After he was done with all his lecture, how did you, at that time, were you already the Secretary General?
No, I wasn't. So
what portfolio did you occupy at that time?
At that time, I think I was chair of the Government Affairs Committee and maybe Ethics.
Okay, the Government Affairs Committee. Now, how did you get out of the Government Affairs Committee and left it in the hands of the EPAs, who now transformed it into an autonomous part of the defunct Restoration Council? That's a story Ambazonians would like to know. Then link it up to the atmosphere and how you felt as an individual when he came up with that rhetoric of a revolutionary council.
Let me start with the former, the former, and then I'll go to how I left that committee. To me, after whatever presentation he did, of course, it's via Zoom. When that was done, to me, in my mind, it was already in the trash can. So I had nothing to ponder over or to think much about it. It was already in the trash can for me. So, and that's why nobody in the house can dare even say, hey, let's take a vote on this and let's call that conclave. Let's take this vote and present it to the executive branch, the president, for signature. It never even did a call to anybody because it was okay. You've given the person, you've heard their views, but it did not sit well. So to me, it was already in the trash can before I even left that session, that legislative session. About how I left how I became SG was the SG had been plagued with a lot of personal things that happened to him. As the chair of Government Affairs Committee, I stepped in to assist while he had a lot of personal family issues that were going. He lost his mom, and there were other things going on. So I stepped in to help and assist at that point. So when he finally just said, "Okay, I am tired," I would step down as SG. So the house now that position became open. So the House members now had to vote for a new SG. So that's how I was voted into that. And then, of course, the portfolios that I had to be replaced. The people had to be replaced. Um, so Dr. Epha was not the chair of Government Affairs Committee, was Ann Day. And of course, unfortunately, it went the way it went because when you are prone to
Now, I'm
gossip,
very much aware that EPA was not a leader, but he was kind of, there was a leaked audio from the Government Affairs Committee that was a source for us to understand the criminality that was happening in a portion of that defunct house. In that audio, you actually saw there was some kind of control in the energy and way EPA was dictating the pace. You had EPA, you had Sango Luis Etongwe, who was also a sneaky fellow because I had discussions with him a couple of times. And then you had the only sanctified man in that house was Dr. I don't know, Marashe's husband. That was the only man in the house that was
Dr. Ade.
Dr.
I
Ade.
think let me be honest. Dr. Ade was not in the Government Affairs Committee.
He was
I
not
don't
there.
think.
But there
No,
was an
he was.
audio that was leaked, and we actually heard him trying to defend ideas. Okay, that was a general flaw. So he was trying.
Let me bring something. When the coup was hitting its climax, what really happened was when the gossips, let me put it that way, when the gossips were reaching the chair of the Government Affairs Committee, now she convened her committee and invited other committee members from other, indirectly almost holding a house session, but under her auspices. So that's why now you had more people from other committees together with her in that committee. I remember
And
at
so
one
God
of those,
had to take Dr. Ade into that particular committee.
maybe that's how he got into that in that meeting that you heard. But the sad thing is, the people that I would say this, there was one of those meetings I provided the ability for them to virtually hold a meeting. But after that, I think maybe because I was kind of stern on some things that was going on to tell them that, hey, as a committee, you need to know this is what your guides are. You do this, and that information comes back to the floor. But let's leave that to the side. The problem that happened was the people that were coming to provide that gossip with this expanded multiple committees now trying to forge a way out, the which included the finance committee, the government affairs committee. I think that was the two. It ended up happening that Marianta was the one providing the Zoom link, and that Zoom link happened to have been a Zoom link of Igiawan's name on it. So the house now was no longer acting independently, or the committees. So their playground or their office space now was being carried. So that's why when they said the thing leaked, it leaked because it leaked from the people who had the access and an ability to have recorded that meeting. I happen to not have been in that meeting. So I was also just hearing it in the public like everyone else. So all those who had the ability or control the accounts, or may have been co-hosts and recorded it, or used a secondary device to record it, were the ones who pushed that information out. I was not in that meeting. But there were other meetings that I was in, but that was not the one. And that was after I threw a fit.
And,
That they were.
and I would say, fortunately for intelligence report, you also knew what was cooking in a meeting that wanted to take over the General Assembly. Now let's get focused. Our idea was how, Madam Speaker, I'm coming back to you, how it all ended with this so-called idea, and who were those in the house still pushing it. Because I understand there were individuals in the house, like the vice chair of the Defunct Restoration Council, Chris Ajwa, proposed it a couple of times during town halls. And on TV, I had him twice or thrice, and he suggested that as a way forward, which means though the general house did not agree, you had disciples of Carson within the house who were just waiting for the right opportunity to unveil themselves.
It's possible that when you give somebody a platform to talk, whether they talk rubbish or they talk sense, they will end up convincing a few. But if that was of any importance, and if it made sense, and if it was of value, what at least one member of the floor would have said, hey, I put a motion. Let's take a vote on viewing this ideology or this proposal, and delve into it deeper, and then structure something and then vote on it. But not even one house member put a motion on the floor for that to have moved forward. Okay.
I'm happy you brought to the attention of the Amazonian people that the Carson Anyangwe's idea from conception has never been popular. So this is a man who is an intellectual dictator, because a good leader, when you have an idea, it could be right, it could be wrong, you get to the grassroots, to the communities, and tell the people. If the people are disinclined, a good leader must not necessarily push through. That is on one side. Now, Barrister Tim, I'm coming back to you because we need to enforce on this. We want to see ask questions. Why would Kasna Nyangwe, knowing fully whether an idea is a bad idea when it comes to the Ambazonian question, but he continues to push through. We'll get to that. I think Barrister Fru should come in there. But I want to come back to you, Barrister Mbeseha. We have watched this video. It's history in the making. I'm talking about the video with Dikintasang Wilfred being anointed by Kasna Nyangwe in front of leaders with Songam, there from the Republic of Amazonia, and other groups. And like Barrister Fru puts it, it was a building. They were putting together the building block to get that unique structure that we are today. What do you have to say about this video? Looking at the body language of the participants, the vulgarity of Mamingang, because the video encapsulates everything. You had one part of it was gossip, another part was official statement. It would appear Kasna Yango was taking his speech from one angle. It was a whole mix-up of ideas coming together. But at the end of the day, one thing was sure: Dikintasang was a logical leader of that movement. So what do you have to say in relation to this discussion of tonight, Barrister T?
What I have to say is this: Mr. Fu has said it's a building block. The summary I want to say is this: see, in politics, we move forward and deal with the consensus. What was happening there was the announcing of the Kintasang. After that, nobody quarreled with who was the leader of Skakuf. They moved forward to the governing council. Yes, people had the debates. At the end of the day, nobody disagreed with what they called the governing council. From there, they went to the IG, which Professor Anyangwe and all those who were in the full conclave all agreed it was the best thing to do. It is still the best thing to do. Their problem with the IG is not the IG. No, their problem is with the individual who is at the head of the IG. And so I've had the opportunity to say this before. The word IG is the thing that scares Yaoundé the most. They can go and take Sissoko from prison to Mvoli, wherever. They will never call him the president of the IG. They call him one of the leaders of Amazonia. And so what scares Yaoundé is not Sissoko, it's not Anyangwe, it's the word called IG. How do we come about with the IG? Well, remember, we'll go back to what they want us to do. They are proposing something of restoration council. The question that we should all know,
Revolutionary council, they're calling it a
revolutionary council, whatever it is. What we should be asking ourselves is, why a council now? Of what good is a council in place of the IG?
In place of the government.
Yeah, the interim government. All these structures that we criticized, the interim house is part of the IG, the judiciary is part of the IG. So what is the fear of the word IG, even amongst ourselves? If Professor Anyangwe and those others who care, Mbakuro and the rest, if they thought that the revolutionary, whatever thing they call it, was important, when they had the opportunity in Canada, even though it was a very unpopular move, Professor Anyangwe was the kingmaker. Would have said, let us just group here and call Miranda, members of the Revolutionary Council, and present us as a group called the Revolutionary Council.
You would have just, since Ayub Tabe to him is the best leader, you would have just made
and then you would have,
leader
that's what I said earlier,
of the Revolutionary Council.
I've said that you would have, I've said it earlier that I simply said that he would have simply transformed the meeting in Canada and met his ordained successor, Sise Ayub Tabe, as the headman, chairman, whatever name they will give it to him, of the Revolutionary Council. He did not. They sat there. If there's nothing to go by from Canada, you find themselves quarreling there. No, I didn't call myself this name. I didn't call myself this name. This is what I call myself. The fact that they did not do that, I've said before, is just talking speech. It's freedom of speech. The idea of Revolutionary Council Or what not? What happened in the conclave? What happened in this Kakuf is all history now. We don't need to waste our time debating it. What they argued and disagreed or agreed in the so-called Restoration Council is history. The Restoration Council is now history.
Right.
And so
Right.
where we are today and how we move forward is the issue. I've said again, the greatest nightmare to Yaoundé is this thing called the IG. And that's why, in the fault of destroying the IG, Yaoundé will do everything to create as many
Barrister,
IGs
I
as
want you to
possible.
I want you to tell us before you continue, Barrister Tim,
Yes.
before I come to you, Barrister Fro, I want you to tell us why is the IG historically the restored IG and uh, a threat to Yaoundé and the cabal? Why do they hate it so much that they would rather prefer other names than it? Why don't they want people to understand that there is an IG? Perhaps you want to give us an idea.
They don't want that because until Canada, you had this Swiss-led initiative. What was it all about? To go to the conference table and address the root causes of the problem. One of the most powerful root causes of the problem is the dissolution of the West Cameroon government, which you don't want to sit down on the table to discuss the idea that there was a government in West Cameroon. They want to discuss that there was reunification. That just meant that the people came back together. You could not come back together when you had the government. You
So
came
their
back as
idea
a...
is to totally wipe from history that there was a
Yes, they don't
government
want that there was
that was
anything called
led
West
by.
Cameroon. They just want to say there was a German Cameroon that was separated for a while, and they came back under the leadership of Mr. Ahijo, who was already a president. He continued to be president. So, and that's why you hear them. All their narrative has not changed. The form of state is non-negotiable. That brings it to where we started. War of aggression, war of assimilation. So, see, the narrative has not changed. They will not, because they were trying to discuss the form of state that will bring an issue what they were before. That would mention the so-called federation that we thought we were going to it. And so it is the bigger narrative, which has gone nowhere as far as we are concerned. The idea of a restoration council is come and gone. The revolutionary council is being talked about. It's not going to materialize anywhere. Again, Canada get on the opportunity. And what happened? Marietta was there. She was there physically with her team. Professor Anyangwe was there, who was the creator of the IG, the creator of Sisiku. Anu was not there, but he wrote. So he was present. So why did they, who were
And you
there,
keep pushing it. I know he's
Nakuro
trying
and all
to
these people?
defend himself from it. And I like the fact that you're using a legal mechanism to cling him to what we know that he was a part of. I enjoy
Yes.
that.
So they didn't do that. And so, again, I think it's freedom of speech. People can discuss anything. I can discuss calling it a democratic republic of Ambazonia, anything I want to call, but that's not going to materialize. Unfortunately for Yaoundé, again, their idea of trying to divide the so-called IG into factions has not worked. Because what happened to Marianta, one of the leaders of the IG, it doesn't give her credit for being one of the leaders of the IG. She left the thing herself. She left the so-called Canadian talks. And finally, the Canadian talks failed. Not because they wanted to divide it, but because apparently they even saw that they were quarreling among themselves. Let's call ourselves ambassadors. They said, no, we're not going to go for that ambassador one. We didn't even authorize anybody to discuss it. And they walked out of it. So the idea of Ambazonia, because there was no Ambazonia before, the idea of Ambazonia, symbolized by a government, even in exile, scares the hell out of Yaoundé and its supporters. But it is not scaring the hell out of the international community. The international community still remains. Go to the conference table, address the root causes of the problem without preconditions. And so I think that's where we are. Thank you.
You see, I like the way Ambazonians are reacting to this. It shows Ambazonians were hunger for this discussion, and a lot of Amazonians are learning. I have one of our mothers watching. Says Akuru and the likes have no time to think as properly or creative as you think. That is to form a group so they become leaders because they are no longer fighting for Amazonia. So they just want to become leaders. So what? Perhaps to go in for safari and enjoy some five-star hotels sponsored from the prime ministry in Cameroon. They are consumed with fighting Sako. This is one of our mothers that's sending it as they call him. Their fight or object or enemy is not French Cameroon. It is President Sako. This is one of the mothers writing. And I thank you all Amazonians watching on Facebook and on YouTube for the contributions that you are making into this show. Your feedback is necessary as we dissect it. Barrister Fru, I'm coming to you now. We have a few minutes to end this program. It is so tasteful, so sweet from even the reactions of Amazonians, and we do not want to end, but we've got to get to an end. Now I'm coming to you. The whole idea of the Revolutionary Council concept and everything is bad, sour taste. And there are chances that the orchestrators or the masterminds behind this whole idea are aware that it is a bad idea. Like Kas Nanyangwe himself is not very proud to evangelize it in different ways. One time I knew he said that on Joe Ayaba's platform. But he knows it's a bad idea. My question to you, Barrister Fru, why will he be advocating so desperately for an idea he knows will not move the struggle forward? Why? What could possibly be his objective?
Two reasons. One of the people who has benefited from the largesse of La République du Cameroon is Carson Anyangwe. And of course, Monzo, Simon Monzo. Now that we're not talking about Simon Monzo, you asked me a question. Two reasons. The first is that he wants to place La République du Cameroon for what La République du Cameroon has done to him and his family, his wife in particular. La République du Cameroon proposed his wife as one of the directors of WHO in East Africa for many years today. And he had to mellow, he had to pay back. Number two, he has never accepted Sako as the leader of the interim government. He wanted to be the leader of this struggle. He wanted to be the leader of the interim government so bad, and he has been fighting from in secrecy and also openly to destroy the interim government so that he can create what you call the Revolutionary Council and lead it.
Now, let me enforce on what you're saying before you continue. I want to enforce on what you're saying. You're saying for two major reasons, he could be an enabler or a blackleg.
He is an enabler of La République du Cameroon.
I know I'm trying to put in my words because I want to highlight your words. Number two, you're saying that is also partly out of jealousy
and ambition.
Correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Out of jealousy. And let me tell you, Carson Anyangwe has been playing the same role that Monzo is playing because the two conveners of AAC 1 and 2 have been rewarded by La République du Cameroon. Monzo has paid enough and is still paying. And one thing I like about Monzo is that he rests and he stays an intellectual and he has taken a position and he has maintained it. But Carson Anyangwe is a dishonest and a bankrupt intellectual because he pretends to be for the independence of the restoration of independence of Southern Cameroon, but does things that every enabler does to make sure that the people who have satisfied him and his family can know that he is working for their interests. And that is the reason why La Republique is so frightened with IG, because the IG has a flag. The interim government of the Federal Republic of Amazonia belongs to the people of the Federal Republic of Amazonia. They have their flag, they have their anthem, and they have their government. Even though interim, they now see the Southern Cameroon's government that Ngomjoa led until Ahijo destroyed it. And that is why you go to Yaoundé, you mention the interim government. It's like you have hit a hammer on somebody's head. I had a niece of mine arrested in the market in Bamenda because she went to the market in Bamenda with a plastic bag that looks like the flag of Amazonia. And I tell you, it took more than 2 months for my family to be able to get her out. That is how frightened these people are. And they are working with the enabler that they have built over the years, Kasina Nyangwe, Monzo Simon, and the rest of it, the Chris Anus and so on, to destroy that government so that they can now say they want to talk to a part of their country, which is the Northwest and the Southwest. Just mention Southern Cameroon, it's like you have killed somebody. And what still, you call the word Ambazonia, they will tell you that there's nothing, the average Francophone will tell you this Ambazonian existing part. But these people are so frightened, and given the actions of the Ambazonia restoration forces on the ground, these people are so frightened with the interim government. That's why they can talk about everybody. They can talk about Chris Anu. They can talk about Kometa Elvis. They can talk about Anyangwe, Munzu, and so on. But you have never. It's so difficult to hear a francophone call the name Saku. Have you heard it? I haven't so far. They are so frightened because that is one person that they have not been able to meet. They have done everything. They have come to. They have made trips to Washington here to try to meet Dr. Saku.
They have not been able to corrupt.
They have not been able to get to him to corrupt him. You can only corrupt somebody when you get to him. They have not even had the privilege of getting to know, even to see him physically. These are people that are living. The word IG is a living hell to La Republique du Cameroon.
No, but Stafu, you just said something there that
Anyangwe them have been called to make that task easy for La Republique du Cameroon by destroying it and bringing a different name, which will mean that we as part of La Republique du Cameroon will form a revolutionary council so that La Republique can negotiate with us and make things better for us in our country, so to speak.
No, but Stafu, you've just said two last things which I want to measure on them as I give the mic to the Speaker of the House. It's very vital that I highlight these two subjects. The first is how the media, the apologists of La République du Cameroon, and those who call themselves leaders of Amazonia are grouping themselves to sideline President Sako. Yep. There are some things we do that some people are not very happy about, but we have to explain it so that they get. When you see us showcasing the images of President Sako, predominantly, there are some people, even within this government, they are not very comfortable. And I don't want to judge you based on that. Maybe you're doing so out of ignorance. We're not trying to create a hegemony. That is protocol. In every, listen, in every system that wants to work, you must project the leadership higher. It's a secret.
Correct.
It is spiritual for those who understand spirituality. It is a spiritual secret, and governments in the world use it purposefully because you must respect that protocol. Let's get to even marriage. In a house, there's a saying I grew up to do. I don't know who has that statement. They say two captains cannot run a boat or ship.
Correct.
Anus became lofty in his core because at one time he was functioning within the interim government like a president. He was not taking orders from nobody. The cabinet was deliberating on a point. He was on TV talking trash. And nobody at one time could question him. And that's why he got up and said that if Ma Irene is not dismissed.
Oh, yes, I did. Oh, yes, I did.
Yeah. He got up one time and said, Ma Irene is not dismissed. He is not coming back. He got lost. Now, please mute some of your system, please. Master Team, please, do you wanna stop what you're playing? It's interfering. Thank you. If anybody's playing something, just stop it. It's interfering. Now, another thing of great importance why we must do that is because look at the media. The media can freely talk about anybody that has given up. Right now, the media in the Cameroons. They are afraid. I was the forerunner organizing the press conference and contacting journalists globally. Journalists are comfortable to talk about every other Amazonian leader. They are not comfortable to talk about President Sako. There is no journalist in Cameroon that I have not contacted or that I cannot contact in the Cameroons.
Yes.
And if I tell you the kind of houses I'm communicating, if you want to talk about a revolution, or if you call it anglophone problem, they are interested. If you call the name Sako, I'm just giving you this detail now so that you understand. And that's why I'm calling on patrons. We're having the meetings with ABC patrons tonight. There are a lot of things I'm going to lay out. I'm calling on ABC Amber TV Club members. Do not make the mistake of undermining the importance of this platform. The day you lose ABC, I can tell you with no fear of contradiction. If you destroy ABC Amber TV or allow them to destroy it, we'll lose this war.
Oh, that will never happen, Paddy. It will never happen. We're working very hard.
Don't make that mistake. Don't make the mistake. Look at the way the media is reporting. Even when you say the media in the Cameroons intentionally report anything that has to do with President Sako with a spine. Because in media, when you don't talk about something, you can use your claim to advocate for something. I'll give you an example. There's this Ambe, they call him is Pastor Ambe, talking in
yes.
The other day he talked from trash. I hope what I've written to him reaches him. And he said, Sako, I hate the fact that he introduced Marianta. He says they do not make 10% of all the groups. And I want to use this opportunity before I give the mic to Madam Speaker of the House that will be giving her concluding statements and add something to say something. Let's examine all the groups that went to Canada. Yes. Now, and see how stupid Pastor Ambe is with his analysis. Number one, ADF is Cho Ayaba, his wife, Kapo, and Lucas Aso, and maybe with their family members. ADF and Sokadev and APM put together do not make up one of the counties. One of the counties, I want to go to counties. Their number globally put together, and even their fight and their fighters on the ground do not make up one of the counties that are loyal to Dr. Sako. So Pastor Ambe, whatever he said is a fallacy. Now they want the war to end, but they still have the war fighting. And the fighters that are fighting are saying every day, Pastor Ambe, that they are loyal to Dr. Sako. Number two, the other groups, like one of my friends that also says that he's in ACT, he's my classmate, His name is Mark, and he also went to Canada as a group. Mark has nothing that he's doing, not for refugees or anything. I don't know if Mark is married yet, so I cannot add his wife to make them, the two of them, a group. Now, Ambe, with all the other civil society, who are they civil society? Where are they? What are they doing? So, if there is anything that is left for Amazonia today, is this interim government. And they would rather destroy it. They have sent their proxies through me. They have sent it to Barrister Fru knows some of them.
Yeah.
They are doing everything to penetrate our systems. You must be vigilant when they come. They come by first appreciating you and trying to make you see the evil side of President Sako, or to see reasons why you can become a more important person than the structure. That's the technique they use. And since Chris Anu didn't have no sense, he fell prey, and also his heart was not for the struggle. It's unfortunate we have to call the name all the time. That was an aside. He was not part of this discussion. I just thought I should address that little issue right now. And the next thing you said, which was the last thing you said, is it's encapsulated in what I said. They want to destroy the interim government at all costs. Madam Speaker, you have been with the movement. I've had personal discussions with you a couple of times, and there's no doubt that you are connected to this struggle from your heart. You're vigilant enough to know when manipulation is coming your way. You are the first leader, and interestingly, a woman of the Restore House of Representatives. That is the Joa House, the way we call it. The structure that you're at the helm is vital.
The modern day PM Calais.
Yes, it's vital as we prosecute this movement. We have not so much have heard a lot of things from your house. I'd like you, as you conclude, we've discussed Cameroon's annexation and that we have restored ourselves and we're seeking for recognition. I'd like you to tell us when we're going to start getting to hear from the house, taking serious moves to ensure that what was agreed in ASSC 2 number 1 should get into motion. When will we hear from your house and know what the house is doing? Because you and your house has chosen to, the both of you have chosen to be out of media for a while. I believe you are in recess, and I believe there's something good cooking. You want to talk to us? The floor is yours.
Thank you, Paddy, for this occasion. I think the first thing I want to really just take is to thank Paddy for having me here again. But I want to move on to say some things. The House is looking at starting a program on ABC Amber TV. We're working with the management of ABC Amber TV when the House will be having that. We may be pushing our date, but I would have loved for that to have started this February. Hopefully, we still have room for that to work. Then the House has done quite a few things, and many, contrary to what some people think, that the House is just sitting behind and doing nothing. And even it's funny because some of the people that even within the government who have kind of put on some show and say, what is that house doing? They are even in the way of not letting the house do its job. The house actually is a representation of the people. And so we have to represent the people. And when the people want to know how the government is running, because the executive branch runs the day-to-day business of the government. the legislative branch does um, pass laws, as well as serve as the major body of the people that oversee and see that whatever the executive branch or the government promises it's doing, that it's being done and done appropriately and done well. So the house, being a young house and not necessarily a young body, because we've had a legislative body ever since the interim government was created, the house has been working in the background, doing some things, um, putting their own structures, their committees, which some of those committees are already working. And one of those committees will be in the forefront to help the House with our media presence. That's the communication committee, and then we'll be having other things that we've done. We've done things like vet some of the president's nominees. We have a mission statement that has been put. Paddy is pushing me like this because I know he wants me to provide him with some information as well that needs to go on the national website or the government website. Those will be coming. He and I will have to tell all that information that the House has provided so that we put it in the right format that will get publicized in public. So we've been doing a lot of things. We've been asking the government some accountability things. Some of those I will not share right here because that was shared with the executive branch, and we are waiting for their response regarding some of those. So there is much going. Um, if I can, at the end of the year, I kind of actually reminded the House some of the things that were really done, so the people would not feel like we mess up or we are slow, so they could take back reports to their constituency. And I can just read this through here. For the last 9 months, this house has gone through a learning curve and is still doing so. That was when I did this, was in December. It is evident by some accomplishment, which I will name: election of house leadership, formation of committees, vetting of presidential nominees, deliberating on bills to restructure and create um, Department of Finance and Resource Mobilization, and the Department of Economic Investment and Natural Resources, and the Department of the National Treasury. We deliberated and passed bill. That deliberation of that is still ongoing because some things will have to be fixed. Deliberation and pass bills regarding the terms of reference, the code of conduct of the House, and deliberated and passed a bill on our mission statement. And at that time, we had at this point, we had at least 3 or 4 committees that were already working. We had set short terms and long term goals for the House, and those proposals, and a few accountability processes were already set in motion, requesting the executive branch to provide them to the IHR some critical information to the people's representative. Um, okay, and there was one that was important. The House also has requested from the executive branch relevant information that will help mitigate. We want to know how we can mitigate interruption and disruption of our internal processes and structures of the interim government by any individual or arm of government unilaterally. So what happened with the coup, we want to see that the government is helping put this. And this will not be only the executive branch. This will be something that we will have to do cognizant with it. It will be an intergovernmental structure. So we want to give the executive branch the idea we need to be working on this, and that will include the judiciary and the ethics and the House. So we work on things that we can put strong foundation, such that no individual can go and sit somewhere at a corner and do something. And some of these are all part of what came out of ASSC, but we want to make sure that we are really doing this. Um, We've had some intergovernmental working session, at least at that time. We had two. We've um, looking forward. We, like I said, we want to do more on TV to have a presence with the people. It may be monthly or it may be bi-weekly. So we'll see how that goes as we start. So in that regards, we will work, and there are other things that we do, and also some other things that I do outside of being speaker for the or the struggle that gets me also very busy. So so Paddy, I just want
Okay,
to
okay,
encourage
yeah. Thank you. I'm happy that you brought. I'm happy that Madam Speaker. I'm happy that you brought in this idea. You should, and many other. Unfortunately, the Judiciary Commission should have learned some lessons as to what led to the coup, observing some of the tendencies that can lead to a coup, because we have human beings, as they call themselves, are free agents that feel that they can think anything. So human beings can change anytime. I'm happy that your two Amazonian people that you putting that into it. I want to believe that all the others are taking the government, every government arm is taking that into consideration. The Ethics Commission, the Judiciary Commission, the Attorney General who is here too, and your house is taking that and factoring that and devising ways to prevent to at least a great extent any imminent trouble. Amazonians are tired of it. We don't want to fight among ourselves. We want to fight the enemy. I would take a few calls, but before that, let's quickly talk about the lockdown. Dr. Mungo has sent out a message to give IG position. That's where you're concluding, Barrister Tim and Barrister Fu. The IG position is that the 5th of this month, or the 10th and the 11th, is a national lockdown. Any fly that comes out is a military target. And
Yeah.
we know why. It's all about the discussion of annexation and Franco-Cameroon imposing hegemony. So we're getting back into that discussion, Barrister Tim. In conclusion, the lockdown. Why Amazonians must despise 11 February celebrations in the entire national territory of the Federal Republic of Amazonia. Barrister Tim, you have that to conclude or to give your final
Well,
word.
11 February Youth Day celebration in Cameroon. Must we take part in it? Certainly not. But for us to know why we should not take part in such a charade, it will probably be good for us to at least have an idea of what the whole thing is about. It's historical. The 11th February thing celebration was actually started in southern Cameroon, decreed in 1963 and took off in 1964. Prior to that, there was what they call the Empire Day. The Empire Day was celebrated on the 26th of October, effective 1954. It represented the creation of the Kwashi Assembly of Southern Cameroon, the giving of a Kwashi region. That when they started as a region and was celebrated. When 1961 came and we did the so-called plebiscite and voted purportedly to join the East Cameroon people, the frontier government had a lot of faith in that thing called the plebiscite. And they celebrated it as a plebiscite day for 2 years. But they changed it to the Youth Day late in 1963. It was celebrated in 1964 as the Youth Day. Because Frontier believed, honestly, that the youth, the new country they were building, was going to be so much dependent on the youth. And so they called it the Youth Day. The first Youth Day was celebrated in 1964, 11 February, in commemoration of the plebiscite, which I voted to join these criminals. It was our day until 2 years after that. Ahijo made it now a national day. putting the East Cameroonians to celebrate the same thing called Youth Day. But whereas we know this history, we had voted to join this people, the East Cameroon people did not take part. They played no role. The thing was meant for the youth of West Cameroon. And then they tried to expand it, and it was expanded to East Cameroon. They don't even know what it was about. The French Cameroon population had no influence in the plebiscite. They didn't take part in the plebiscite. They didn't vote. They were not consulted. And so they had no idea about what was happening in 1961. So, and they took it now. If you ask a Francophone, what does Youth Day mean? They have no idea. What role did they play? Absolutely no role.
Even Southern Cameroonians don't know what it is, because
yes.
It has been.
So that was the beginning. French government in 1963 thought that the youth, the future that that voted in 1961 was going to be based on the youth. And so they call it Plebiscite Day. And then later on, Youth Day in 1964, 11 February and 65. And I hear them about it now and call it Youth Day for the whole nation, which has turned out to be a nothing to celebrate. What did the French government get out of it? Zero. What have the youth born after 1961 gotten out of this celebration out of this significant date of 11 February? Yeah, they have gotten instead death, suppression, whatever thing you can call it, which has taken us to where we started here. Aggression, annexation. Is it worth celebrating? No. And so the lockdown, it is a day of remembrance of our death. It's a day of remembrance of our suffering, of our annihilation, of the total aggression and the total absorption of British Southern Cameroons. And so we have nothing to celebrate. We should, if we needed to celebrate, we should wear in blacks to mourn for the loss of our institutions, which today, Yaoundé, they celebrate it, but they will not dare talk about the origin of this date. There was no plebiscite, according to them. If they were talking about reunification, there was no plebiscite. And it had to be a plebiscite for reunification. It would have involved the whole East Cameroon and West Cameroon. They didn't vote into that thing. So why are we celebrating for them? And so
now, I just want to, I'd like us to get this contribution from Ochiba Nelson, and then we can collectively comment on it. And then Ochiba Nelson, you have the floor. He's going to be talking along the same line. Barrister From, coming to you, you will talk. Just hold your peace a little bit. Ochiba Nelson, Ambazonia is listening to you. Can you speak now?
Hello, Director. Can you hear me?
You're loud and clear.
So I want to thank the ABC television and thank our parents who always step up to come and educate our people. You talked about Pastor Ambe. Pastor Ambe is a member of the Coalition for Dialogue and Negotiation that who organized the first Canadian retreat, and they came out with a resolution that they wanted to a greater autonomy. So I went there, and the La Republique National Anthem was the only anthem that was there. I stood up and observed it. He said he did not sing it, he only observed it. So that is the reason why you see he is against us. We all know that La Republique is suffering today. La Republique cannot even move an inch or develop because her leaders, maybe Ayijo, went and signed a secret deal in 1959 called the Cooperation. He did not inform the La Republique population the content of the deal. Nothing. 60-something years today, they are still suffering because certain things were signed in that deal that were never disclosed to the population. And if today we have some people, La Republique agents, they went to Canada and they also signed a similar deal. We know that they signed a deal because even scam said, oh, I distance myself from the secret deals that we signed. Now, what I'm asking Southern Cameroonians is this. How can people go to Canada? They go and sign a secret deal in Canada. They come back to you. They don't give you any accountability. They don't give you who were those in attendance in Canada. What was the agenda? What were the resolutions? And what is the content of the deal that they signed? They came from it, pocketed their monies, and then they come there trying to say, oh, we want unity for Ambazonia, we want unity for Ambazonia. So I'm calling on all Southern Cameroonians who continue to listen and believe to Chris and Marianta, Ayeba, Akwanga, Akoro, and the rest. Before you listen to them, hold them to account. Ask them, what did you people discuss in Canada? What did you sign in Canada? Why is it that Chris Anu said there's nothing like Ambazonia flag, and because there's no country like Ambazonia? Now, which Ambazonia he's talking to now? Which flag is he using? I ever said Ambazonia is an abstract. Independence is abstract. Now, why is he still talking about Ambazonia again? Capo Daniel gave an excuse, congratulating Paul Biya and said we should not fight any longer because we are brothers, we are this. And we are trying to put this thing so that even those who were deceived by these people, they should begin to ask them questions. You ask them questions. Americans revolted against the British because they said you cannot tax us without representation. They never had people in their parliament representing America, so that's why they said no. Taxation without representation it is not going to work. How can people claim that they are your leaders? They go and sign certain things, they come back, they don't even brief you, they don't even tell you, they hide everything. And they continue to behave as if they are still speaking for Amazonia. Amazonia that they have even refused all the emblems. So people of, our Amazonia people, if you are the never again generation, you need to ask questions. You need to ask questions. That is why some of us, when we go to the interim government platform, even the APP, we are free there because we ask questions. We ask questions to the president, to the House Speaker, everybody, they answer us. How do you go and follow people who you cannot even comment on their post? You cannot you don't even have a say. They are even more, they are worse than Pobia. They are worse even than La Republic. The firepower they promised, nothing. Taking the war to La Republic, nothing. Millions of dollars, nothing. Everything, nothing. Then you people continue to listen to them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ochiba. You just brought something to my attention, which I think is important for this platform to make a rejoinder. It is not the IG position, the interim government position, to take the war in La Republic to Cameroon. If, for instance, we are fighting in Ambazonia and bullets get into La Republic to Cameroon, that is normal and is accommodated within the boundaries of international law. So far, it is not the policy of the interim government. Also, we are not saying that taking the war into La Republic to Cameroon is wrong. That was not what we discussed during our last discussion with the panelists that are here, except for Madam Speaker. We are saying that the IG, the interim government, has not yet adopted the policy to take the war into La Republic to Cameroon. One time the president said, the war is evolving and the evolution of the revolution will determine the way it is prosecuted at every given time. So that rejoinder was necessary for us to say. In international law, it's also permitted to target the source of the enemy. It is not also the policy of the interim government to go after a civilian population, either by burning civilian homes or destroying civilian property. That is necessary. Barrister Fru, I'm coming to you. We could all, Madam Speaker, you can make a 1 minute comment on based on what Ochiba has said at the end, and Barrister Mbesea, you can also do it. But the floor is yours to speak in conclusion, Barrister Fru.
Yes, I want to talk about 11 February.
Thank you.
Because that is the day that was the worst day for the people of the Southern Cameroons. The Monthly Conference in 1959 actually voted for our independence. The British diplomat who was present went to the United Nations along with Foncha, and something happened, and the British sold us by talking about our economic situation, which is prohibited by the various enactments of the United Nations for those trust territories, Class B trust territories that were asked to be prepared for independence, irrespective of their economic situation, irrespective of their political situation. You prepare them for self-governing. And how did it come that the British and the French carved out this issue of two alternatives, a plebiscite in the southern Cameroons, and they refused us direct independence? They gave us independence by joining. We are the only country in the world that received independence by joining. And they came and deceived our people. Foncha came back and said, oh, it's time to drown our brothers and so on. Sometimes I wonder if he is really a Southern Cameroonian. I'm sorry to make that statement. I'm very sorry. Because the 11th February plebiscite was not to the interest of the Southern Cameroons, who were supposed to have been granted independence just like La Republic was granted independence. It therefore is the worst day in the life of the Southern Cameroons. Therefore, all these issues of celebrating Youth Day, Empire Day, whatever my colleague was calling them, youth, whatever, plebiscite day and all that, is immaterial. It was offensive and repugnant. Therefore, the lockdown on the 10th and the 11th of February should be executed to letter by the restoration forces of the Federal Republic of Ambazonia. We will start from today to continue to drumbeat the lockdown in our territory. La Republic loves 11th February because it's to their interest. Let them dance. Let them do whatever they want to do and dance in their territory. But as far as the territory of the Southern Cameroons and Ambazonia is concerned, there will be no celebration of 11th February. And to finish, Paddy, I don't like the word West Cameroon, because it presupposes that we join La Republic in a federal system. We did not legally join La Republic. So anybody talking on this television or anywhere, please keep away from the word West Cameroon. Thank you very much.
I like what you said about this 11th February and every celebration is punk. I want you to repeat that statement again. You said something. The diction was so good, which I think we need to rebroadcast it. You said it
I
is
just said 11th February is repugnant to the people of the Southern Cameroons. And that nobody should celebrate or anything should happen on the territory of the Southern Cameroon, because that's the worst day of our country. The worst thing that happens to us. Against the interest, against the opinion of the people of the Southern Cameroon that was taken in Mafe in 1959. Concha went to the United Nations along with the British diplomat that was present in that conference and sold us. I don't know what they did, and came back with two alternatives. La Republic was not even contemplated in Mafe. We were talking about Nigeria and being independent. How come they asked us to either join La Republic or join Nigeria? It was the cooking between the British.
One of these days, Pastor Fru, we're going to get into the rooms in the conference in Manfe and how the petitions by EML Ndele to the House of Lords where he was treated like almost like how President Sako is treated today. His petitions were ignored, and apologies. I'm not blaming John Poncha because he recognized it, but it was a little bit too late. But then I would say that the real nationalist of Southern Cameroon, a man who understood the intricacies that were involved, wrote petitions protesting against the options that were given to his people. And all of that was ignored. So it was a well-calculated act, and that's why we cannot stop blaming Great Britain for that. Amazonians, you heard from the mouth of the Attorney General, the chairperson of the Judiciary Commission, and the Speaker of the House. I think we have less than we in fact we have exceeded our time, so we have 3 minutes to end the show. If you want to make any comments, Madam Speaker and Barrister team, it should not exceed 90 seconds each.
Oh, thank you. Actually, if you want to look, I think I'll give you something. I'll throw something that you might use later. La République does not officially celebrate its independence with all the pungence and pomp, which is January 1st, but they celebrate it as a new year, which is a public holiday. So indirectly, they celebrate it, and we are forced to celebrate it because it's just internationally, the 1st of January seems to be a holiday. But they would not even in their annexation would not even allow us have October 1st as a holiday just because of wanting to wipe out our history. I grew up knowing that we were two nations. My history was so flawed. What about us was so flawed? Never knew we had 2 different days of independence until 2016. When this started, I went into the archives looking.
That's how criminal. That's how criminal the system of assimilation was. That we were not taught the history.
No.
When our people were protesting in 2017, I watched a panel discussion where even intellectuals, professors were surprised to know that October 1st was an independence of the other side. They were surprised on a panel discussion in La République du Cameroon. That's how bad the system was calculated. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. We will take responsibility to herald that and herald it loudly. Thank you. Barrister Mbesea, please.
Thank you. The take-home lesson from this lengthy discussion are about 2 or 3. Now, let me just start with the February 11th celebration. I don't think anybody should blame Funcha or blame Ndele. All the responsibility lie with the UK. The Manfred conference all agreed with Ndele, Funcha, and whoever was there. If we must join, we need a third option. And the UK took them to the UN. They were not speakers at the UN. They didn't have a voice there.
Did Funcha come back to tell us? Did he come back?
Let me finish my point now. Let me finish my point. They were not speakers at the United Nations, but them agreed that they wanted a third option. Britain, for whatever reason, refused. I'm sure if Funcha were alive, if Mona were alive, if they were alive, 11 February, they all wear sackcloth because nobody wanted it. It is imposed on them. But luckily, we have come to this generation of no-nonsense generation.
Never again.
We'll get to where we would have gotten. Though late, we're going to reach that final point. And then again, we have discussed this annexation, aggression. I hope this is teaching enough. People will learn a lot from what we have discussed. It was a good discussion. My colleagues at home front, the young lawyers and the old ones, must have learned a lot. We'll call on them to go to their history books, do the research, and then understand the history. Again, until 1994, the teaching of Cameroon history was outlawed. You were not allowed to teach it. If you taught it, you were taken to jail. The Open University of Boya.
There you go.
Yeah.
Even as of today that we're still talking, the Cameroon government is still paying its own historians to write the history of Cameroon the way they want. I don't know any
Macron advised them in the visit of last year. Macron told them to set up a team to write the history.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
is calculatively ensuring that they don't change the pattern of
So
deception.
they are still writing. They are trying to write the history the way they want it. But history is what it is. It is not what
That's
you
right.
want.
What happened?
And so again, this is, I mean, we are blessed today to have the academicians who have also gone to school. All you and me are saying here are documented somewhere. We have read those books. We have read those documents. All the thing that was said at the United Nations is declassified. Anybody can see it. And so again, to the February 11th, it's not a celebration day. If there must be celebration, it should be a mourning day for Ambazonia. And so those people at the home front learn a lot, try to see where we're coming from, and see where we're heading to, and to end it as Paddy clarify something. We're in the defensive or we're defending ourselves. We are not offending anybody. If in the process of defending ourselves, we can plant a bomb in Santa, I said this before, that will take off a military headquarters in Bafusam. That's good war.
Yep.
That's defense.
Yep.
If you can plant a bomb or any missile in Chico, that will blow up the military headquarters in Douala, even Yaoundé, that's a good defense.
It's a legitimate defense.
We are not targeting any family members. We are not targeting poor people. They can go about their business, but they can also be caught under crossfire. That will not be our fault.
Collateral damage. Collateral damage.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, lady and gentlemen, Madam Speaker. I'm honored to have had you on this platform, Barrister Mbesea, Barrister Fro. Thank you for always making out the time amidst your busy schedule. I could see every time I change the shot, Madam Speaker stands up to do a little bit of exercise. I've reported you publicly, meaning that this was a task. I appreciate you came ready for war with a beautiful denim jacket, and so you can talk to your people in the way that they will understand. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. This program will be rebroadcast at home front starting from tonight and tomorrow, so that we can have some of these apologists at the home front forcing our people to think that we are not a nation of our own. They'll watch it and watch it again. Thank you, gentlemen. It's been a wonderful day. I want to congratulate the president for his bravery. There's a speech of the president. We're going to broadcast it tomorrow or on Monday, prime time. And he's spelling out some things categorically. I think he's working on it. I'll say it's a revived speech that he gave during the town hall on Thursday. But there are some things of concern. Remember, do not forget that the 10th and the 11th, as announced by Dr. Mungwa, is a shutdown. It's a shutdown. I don't know why Barrister Fru is calling. But I'm live. Yes, Barrister Fru, I am live. Do you want to say something to the public?
Is a public man who is a common law lawyer. Just for you to know.
Okay. Jude Fongang, who is forcing the rhetorics to Ambazonians that this is an anglophone problem. He's a Bami. Okay, so you see the Tontus who now purport themselves. Thank you for that. All the Tontus who now purporting themselves as Anglophones want us to believe, to narrow this movement into an Anglophone problem. Unfortunately for them, not this generation will be a victim to that. Thank you very much for.
It will not happen. It will not happen. And Paddy, I want to assure you that ABC Abba TV will be there forever and ever till we get to Boya and turn it into a state television complete.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's now a state television, and I can see Madam Speaker of the House doing her exercise.
It's an interim state television. I just subscribed to it, Paddy. I'm subscribed $25. I don't know whether you saw it.
For ABC?
For ABC, yes.
Thank you very much. We're having a
and it's every, they will take it from my account every month.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'm very humbled for your love, towards ABC Amber TV and towards this movement. Thank you. I'm calling on those who are watching us right now. You can see the new platform for the government, the aidforcitizens.org, and the Ambazonian government website, official website, is there. Go there, read whatever is there, make your comments, send us feedback. It is a work in progress. We are working towards ameliorating that platform. Before that interruption from Barrister Messiah, I was telling you that the Secretary of State for Communications and ID on Tuesday, I'm sure he will be there to give you details on how the government intends to enforce the lockdown of the entire national territory from the 10th into the 11th. We've given to you sufficient reasons why you must join the interim government to despise whatever celebrations that La Republique or that the colonial administration is organizing in our national territory. You must join the interim government to do that. It is your civic duty, your right, unless you want to betray yourself or your own right, not to do it. But we think that you should be a part of it. It's very important that you do that. I guess you love this background like me. I was gonna use it just for one night, but my mother-in-law said I love this background, it's good. So I thought that I should use it for another one more week after the press conference before changing it to the old background. It speaks a lot of things. We're in partnership with all these media houses who came to assist us for this press conference. So there is the pre-press conference, there was the press conference, and now there's the post part of it, which is also to enhance the houses and to make sure that our narrative as a government is getting across the world. We want to have the president of the Federal Republic of Ambazonia interviewed globally in the days ahead. And we want to start planning for the next press conference this first quarter of the year, that is before the end of March. We want to start planning for that press conference, or before the end of April. That press conference, the planning starts now. So we'll be having a series of meetings. Tonight, we'll have the first set of meetings with the ABC Amber TV patrons. Patrons are those who are giving big every month. Some of them are giving, some of them do not even like us to call their names, but I cannot say thank you enough without calling their names. Dr. and Mrs. Lobati, that means the House Speaker and her husband, are giving to ABC Amber TV every month, and others, they're not the only ones doing that. They're giving every month at least $500 to fund the television. They are patrons of ABC Amber TV. You have a lot of others who are giving the same amount. They don't want their names publicly. A lot of them don't want their names publicly. I want to thank you, Manini, who is giving monthly almost a huge same amount just to ensure that this TV stays alive. We appreciate you. These are individuals who understand the importance of this war in the media, and they want to ensure that the TV stays and nobody can destroy it. We're also grateful to the club members. You can see Barrister Fru Johnson has just subscribed or renewed his subscription, and he has made it monthly, and that's $25 a month. That's amazing. We have a whole lot. We want to increase the club into 500 members with a minimum monthly donation of $10. That is what we intend to do. So this meeting of tonight is strategic with board members. We want to put a strategy review. The president has sent out a policy statement which we want to use to, we're thinking that it will be imperative for us to use it to re-strategize how ABC will be operating business henceforth. We are also calling on those Ambazonians who have businesses. We'd like to patronize your business. If you will patronize ABC Amba TV, we will produce for your business a world-class promo. If you become a patron of ABC Amba Television, we'll produce a world-class promo. I have a sample that I'm going to play here now for all of you to see. I'm sure you would have been seeing this promo on ABC Amba TV for a while now. Right after this promo, I will come back to make some final announcements and give you some details as to what will be.
Get trained as an IT professional from the comfort of your home. Dynamic Tech Academy gives you a unique opportunity through our 6-month program, during which you learn skills to transition to being a full-time IT professional. Over 80% of our students have no prior IT background, yet the vast majority of them land jobs a month after they start applying. Our ultimate goal is to reach 100% student placement, so we work with every student until he or she gets a job. Upon successful completion of the course, we will give you a resume, interview preps, one-on-one coaching from experienced instructors, and job placement assistance. Within this course, you get more than 300 hours of theories combined with real-world applications and practical skills you can apply on day one on your job. At the end of the program, our students can be certified as Red Hat Systems Administrator, AWS Cloud Engineer, AWS Security Specialist. Visit our website at www.dynamictechacademy.com to register.
I am confident that you actually enjoyed what you just watched. That is what we are capable of doing for patrons who own businesses. And you should be a patron at a certain level. We will patronize. We'll do a promo like this and use it in any other broadcasting house. We'll do it for you if you're a patron that is giving a certain amount of money to ABC Amba TV. We'll do this for you, and many more advantages that are to come. The sales of Southern Cameroon's rapper, or what some call Ashwabi, you have seen it before properly showcased. The sales are yet open. Distribution will get intensified this month. That's something for those who need their copies, you know how to contact us. But I'm calling on you to go on our website. If you're watching and you have not yet subscribed, we're trying to look for a way that we were giving people at the home front who want to subscribe. So we're going to look easy ways to enable people to subscribe on that website globally. New introduced Ochiba and other Amazonians have said that we should add coins, not just Bitcoins or cryptocurrency on our website. You know, I told you we're not afraid to be called the Bitcoin IG. You know, only people who want to use Bitcoin as a sabotage. If you are living in the world and you do not understand that cryptocurrency sooner than later will be taking the economy, then you are a mistake in this generation, because big businesses like Tesla or of the world's #1 billionaire, the richest man in the world, is getting to cryptocurrency. You have the world's economic epicenter, New York, has a population that almost 80% of the population of the world's economic epicenter is involved in cryptocurrency. Why are you left out of it? So it's not an insult. you call us Bitcoin IG. What you don't know is you are disgracing the future of your unborn kids. That you are opted to be primitive. And we cannot take responsibility for your primitivity. And we will not stop doing. Just so you know, the interim government is not officially involved in Bitcoin. But since we want to money from different places, we might introduce by which monies can be paid by any form. And we don't really care what you think about it. Let's get down to, let me conclude on this important aspect. President Dr. Samuel Ikome Sako has made an announcement. And you know when he talks substance. He said, every Amazonian born freedom fighter, every, irrespective of your name, every Amazonian born freedom fighter who is ready to take loose the Bulu occupational force and the Zakawas, in fact, La République du Cameroon, administer their forces. If you are dedicated for that cause, you should contact the interim government and you will be funded. To let you know, if you doubt it, you know I don't give fake news. You can communicate at Kwanga, he will tell you. Dr. Sako has sponsored the late General Transporter with millions of CFA. And that and those fighters that the president looks at when he was alive and smiles, irrespective of the fact that he was not under the interim government. But there are initiatives that he has approached President Sako. These are facts and they are receipts. I'm talking about millions of CFA and the president financed them. So just to tell you the credibility of this man, this is the only that Amazonia has had in the history that came in 2018 during the ASC and to all the contractors of defense groups and said, come together, organize yourself. All I want to do is to fund it. He learned his lessons and saw that he will not just throw money, he's going to manage. This time around, we are not doing a reverse gear like apologists who want us to go back to Eskakov, that we have evolved. No, he is saying that he's telling you guys to organize yourself, but he's going to monitor and observe that you're genuine, and then he's going to fund you. He's not wanting to own you. He wants to capacitate you so we can win Paul Biya. His interest is winning President Paul Biya. So do not sit there as a fighter kidnapping because you don't have resources. The president wants to provide you with resources so that you will have no reason to steal, kidnap, or oppress our civilian population. Self-defense is a human right, and interim government is willing to enhance you to make sure that you can our homeland, defend our women from being raped. Very important. Make no mistakes about that. I need to get go now and get myself ready for the meeting we're having tonight. It's been Tarh Paddy King, and we've had a great night talking about very pertinent issues, examining the criminal caught pants down, trying to annex even the people who have decided to restore their independence. And by now you should know how Chris Arnold to a business that failed, how he got himself into a job that failed. He has failed in all jobs. When he was appointed Secretary of State for Communication, he started a radio. Go and ask him what happened. I hear that he used to repair computers. Go and ask him what happened to the repairing business. He failed. And he took a job because his employers, the Kas Nanyangwes and Bankwi, thought that he had some potency. And a few days later on, he has failed. Unfortunately for them, he's announcing publicly that that is what he wants now instead from his interim government or his failed group he calls interim government. But we knew and we told you So you are just correlating facts with our words. Thank you for watching. See you on Monday.
Wisdom for the Amazonian Quest with Bridget Muyang Fielding. Wisdom is the principal thing, therefore get wisdom, and with all thy getting, get understanding. King Solomon, Proverbs 4:7, KJV.
And if any man think that he knoweth anything, he knoweth nothing, yet as he ought to know. Apostle Paul, 1 Corinthians 8:2.
We are only as wise as our awareness of our ignorance. The only true wisdom is knowing you know nothing. Socrates/Plato. This wisdom is the altar of humility and success.
There is no wisdom for a nation at war to sink its own gunboat. It weakens diplomacy, is tantamount to capitulation and defeat. That is exactly what some so-called Amazonian leaders have done, asking fighters to keep low for whatever reason. This is surrender wisdom, and it has delayed progress for 2 years. Bridget Muyang Fielding.
Wisdom for the Amazonian Quest with Bridget Muyang Fielding. Wisdom is the principal thing, therefore get wisdom, and with all thy getting, get understanding. King Solomon, Proverbs 4:7, KJV.
And if any man think that he knoweth anything, he knoweth nothing, yet as he ought to know. Apostle Paul.
For the first time in our editorial, we'll be having a comprehensive article by the soul searcher Fredly Muzanta, which he titled Emergence or Consensus, Not Elections. Revolutionary leaders are never elected, they rise, emerge, or are chosen amongst equals through consensus. This is so because the revolution usually starts in the mind of one person. The mind that conceives it is best placed to start it. The next available option is for those who sat down to conceive a project to choose from their ranks the one usually referred to as the best among equals to lead. Now, when the GCE board was created under much pressure, the question arose regarding who should be the pioneer registrar. While even the initiators of the board were confused, looking for some more impressive PhD holder to head it, Achidi Achu knew otherwise, having foreseen the obstacles and challenges that the baby institution would face. He convinced the advocates and champions of the board to have one of them nurse the board. That's how Azongwara emerged as the pioneer registrar. The Awande government, as expected, did everything in its power to stifle the new board, but Azongwara, driven by passion and the dedication and love of a queen who had just given birth to the potential heir to a converted throne, knew exactly what to do to make the institution stand. Now, during biblical times, Pharaoh, faced with unprecedented drought, hunger, and strife, did not need to cast lots to know that he by whom God had revealed the solution was the best candidate to put at the head of his crisis government. The great Pharaoh did away with many of his attributes to enable Joseph rise and reign. Why? His empire and people were in peril. Consensus choice is the best way to choose a leader in the situation where the chieftains of several movements in a revolution seek the top job. If they truly are out for the good of the people, it will not be difficult to agree on who the face of the revolution should be from among them. Many considerations come into play, the foremost being who carries the masses. Popular support was what informed partisan Wilfred's choice as Skakov's Secretary General during the Second Conclave. Other considerations may include charisma, knowledgeability, and geopolitical sensitivity. The last geopolitical sensitivity was what informed the choice of Dr. Common Sense, Samuel Ikome Sako, as acting president following the Nera Hotel abductions and subsequently by consensus as president. God since gave Dr. Sako other competencies to confirm the truth that whom God elects, he justifies. Whenever supposed revolutionary leaders cannot agree on who leads from their midst, you will find out that lust, thirst for power, and ego are the impediments. These weaknesses, when they come into play, never work for the good of the people, and those who allow themselves to be animated by these traits are never genuine leaders. In the light of the above, one would expect that the Cometa Abongwa Anu group, currently led by Iya Marienta, would sit down and agree on who should be leader. Why is this not happening? It is because they are a group of scheming, plotting, greedy and treacherous individuals. The liberation of Ambazonia is not their preoccupation. The only logical thing to expect from them is that which gathered them together in the first place: falsehood, treachery, stabbing, backstabbing, and thievery. These are currency in the jungle, and the only way to survive therein is ruthlessness. The only hindrance to bloodletting among this gang is the distance separating them. Let us review how some of our leaders came to the fore. Ngorji Dinka, the father of Ambazonia, was not elected, yet nobody has ever dared to gainsay his position, even with his age. Ambazonia was first conceived in his mind, and so he had the privilege to nurse the baby until it could get up and walk. This His Majesty did with the patience of the mother who knew what was at stake. This included nursing the baby in the wilderness. His legitimacy came from the righteousness of the cause he started, not from those he sought to liberate. All movements and faction leaders hold him in the highest, even if some do so out of hypocrisy only. His name is held in absolute reverence whenever it is mentioned. Now let's see Tesang Wilfred. He was elected by teachers as their union leader. He emerged as the mouthpiece of all the others' union, naturally because his union conceived the project, and also because Katu controlled the highest number of teachers. Ambazonians queued behind him because of his charisma, courage, and proven integrity. In Ibis Hotel, Nigeria, the big well-known elders of the struggle, amongst whom were SENC chieftain Mfongala, Carlsin Ayangwe, Elvis Kometa, and more, agreed amongst themselves for Tesang to lead because they acknowledged the euphoria around his person, which euphoria the revolution needed to capitalize on. Now that was sublime consensus, major leaders, each one of them with a legitimate claim to leadership, casting their crowns aside to bow to a new fight for the utmost good of the cause. One would think that this great example would guide us all along. Now Julius Ayuk Tabe. At the third conclave, Ayuk Tabe was chosen by acclamation and consensus. The election that was scheduled did not take place. No objection was raised when Patasang Wilfred decided that the newest arrival in their midst should lead. This happened in the presence of two undisputed legendary advocates of Ambazonia, Umfo Ngala Umfo of this SCNC and Augustine Faye Ndangam of Scapo. These two men, ripe in age, filled with wisdom, and most knowledgeable in the matter of the day, deserved more than anyone else to be conferred leadership. But they did not put forth their candidatures. All they cared about was building on the momentum of the time to ride to Boya. Ayuk Tabe was therefore a consensus choice. Though the expression was not used, Julius Ayuk Tabe was motivated by geopolitical sensitivity. His emergence was timely, as it probably needed a big title. Sisiku from Manu to counter the rising traitor, the emasculated Felix Abobala. Ayuk Tabe became the first president when the governing council was transformed into the interim government at the fourth conclave. Once again, there was no election to that office. Patasang Wilfred and others who had genuine reasons to object choose not to do so for the sake of maintaining a united front. Once more, a consensus was arrived at without the word being pronounced. Perverse and accidental leaders do not understand this, neither will they. Now, President Samuel Ikome Sako rise to prominence, first as acting president and then as president, was more out of consensus than elective. An early election was set aside by the college for him to emerge. Just imagine that this didn't happen. Chris Anno, the deal bringer, would have dealt us a very raw deal long ago. The choice of Samuel Ikome Sako is yet another proof that geopolitics and not necessarily longevity or any other competencies, though they matter, counts for a lot in the Amazonian revolution. To depart from it will be suicidal, perhaps as suicidal as the attempt to conduct elections instead of arriving at a consensus. If you ask me to pass valid judgment, I will say that Amazonian leaders in the vast majority have exhibited a high degree of maturity during the struggle so far. In selflessness and disinterestedness, we have seen these at the highest levels. Elders have transferred their crowns to boys in order to make sure that nothing stands in the way of a cherished dream. Bad seeds have never lacked in causes like ours, though. Through courage, determination, and rugged steadfastness and dedication, we will deal with them as we go along. Now, in conclusion, elections are not what a revolution like ours need. Bo Herbert and Morris tried imposing this on the struggle in 2017 but failed. Conducting elections can be very hazardous. If that were possible, would the United States of America not have done so in the heart of the COVID-19 pandemic? What the President Gang's high priest, Elvis Cometa, plans to organize will be an insult to the concept of popular elections. How much legitimacy will that confer on the cabal? Absolutely nil. What if La République du Cameroon, as we expect, works behind the scenes and influences the gullible bunch to vote their choice candidate? Even in the netherworld, the gang leader is not elected. He emerges either by the size of his biceps or by the speed and dexterity of his hand on his Smith & Wesson. The Cometa Abongwa Anu band is not obsessed with the idea of having a legitimate government or the practice of democracy. They are involved in very high treason. Fortunately, Amazonia knows better and has chosen well. We've come to the end of this very comprehensive article from the soul searcher Fredly Muzang and also the end of our editorial for today. If you want more of such articles, kindly visit our website at www.abcambertv.com for more. Become a part of this winning strategy, subscribe and become a club member today. Find our payment details on your screen. I am Star Smart reporting for Undaunted ABC Amber TV.